Hello again, friends, and you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru, right here, debuting on a Tuesday once again to get all the latest professional wrestling garbage in on this week's show. I am the great Brian Last, your host. I think we'll even have some questions at some point, maybe a song or two this week on the show. Questions that'll be asked of this man, the leader of the cult of Cornette, the Bob Guccione of Louisville, Kentucky, Mr. Jim Cornette.
First of all, I'm not completely sure that all of them, every single one of them, are indeed our friends. There may be a few enemies sneaking in here somewhere, listening to us, trying to get smartened up. And some of these people, to be quite honest, we may need to take another look at before we just give them blanket endorsement as our friends. But besides that, there may be a song here today. I may sing one. The Post Office Blues. That might. Oh, I got the Post Office Blues. No, I lied to the cult of Cornette members for literally the first time ever this past week on, what was the last show we did? The Experience last week. I lied to, I admitted a falsehood. I was not truthful. The words that emanated from my pie hole were in error. I didn't know it at the time. See, that's the price we pay on these things when we pre-record. When we pre-record, we make an ass out of you and me. That doesn't really work that way, does it? Well, you know what I'm going for anyway. We said on Thursday afternoon, because I had all the packages wrapped up and ready to go, all the cult of Cornette, JimCornette.com, Cornette's Collectibles customers out there, all their stuff wrapped up all the way through, I believe, the previous Wednesday morning, and going to send it out, and had my appointment Friday morning with the lovely and talented Bree at the post office, and so I admitted the words, well, everything's been sent out, because I knew you in your lackadaisical state, and you sleep till nigh on 12:30, quarter to 1 in a day these days. You weren't going to have the program out till Friday afternoon, so I was comfortable in saying that everything was on its way. But there was a flag on the play Friday morning. I go to the post office at my allotted time. They knew I was coming. I walk in the door. Guess what happened, Brian? Every single window clerk in my quaint little branch of the Postal Service here, except for one, was sidelined. I will just say that they were in the vicinity of someone they shouldn't have been the previous day. And then people said, well, now you got to go away for a while. Even everyone's fine, but they're not available for work. Except for one. Well, at least we got one, right? Guess who the one was? It was his day off. He wasn't there.
John the Hunchback.
You are correct, sir.
Oh, no.
No, I love John. John's a great guy, and we kid. And, of course, he doesn't listen to this program, and he might turn on me if he ever did. But John is a wonderful guy to talk to while you're in there. There's no customers, whatever, but he's great on the trivia. You know, he's a wonderful, he's had many life experiences. But here's the thing. With Bree, we got our synchronicity now. I go in with all the packages sorted out, priority mail, first class, international, whatever. I feed them to the scale. She types in the zip code, hits the button, prints the label. We've got an assembly line going here. Her average, I will have you know, is 30 seconds. And this is over a longer period. This is like over a 30-minute or a 60-minute period of time. She's a 60-minute woman. 30 seconds per priority mail package if there are no equipment breakdowns or tape changes. Amazing. And so if I go in there, as I did, the other day was a light day. I had about 60 packages. I said, well, Bree, I'll have my receipt in my hand in 30 minutes, right? But I see John, and he's the only window open. Now, some people may say, well, Cornette, just stand there and grin and bear it. You do not understand the domino ripple effect that this has on the entire town. Because if he's the only window open, that's why I always go when there's two clerks there, because I have my clerk over in the corner and the other clerk takes care of everybody else. But now if I'm the only one, 30 minutes somehow, because sooner or later will become a line of people out into the parking lot, pulling out switchblades, blackjacks, slapjacks, pocket knives, and various forms of shanks. So I'm like, John, I tell you what, just do these 10 boxes here and I will drop back. And are you going to get somebody later today? I don't know. They haven't told me anything. And I see one of the supervisors. Oh, well, we don't know exactly for sure. Okay, do these 10 boxes. I'll get out of everybody's way because now I got 4 people behind me. Guess what John's time was on 10 boxes?
Oh, geez. I don't know. 20 minutes.
16. So those people, by the time I get it, and I'm wheeling the rest of my shit out, and those people are wanting to stab me. So anyway, we're recording today, and tomorrow, by the time you hear this, I will have gone back over to see if they have requisitioned reinforcements here at my local branch, and then if that is not the case, then we have backup of going down the road to a completely I've never been to another branch in the years that I've been the major domo of Cornette's Collectibles. Never been to another post office branch, but there's one down the road, and we're going to investigate that. See if they've got more than one window open. But there's been a flag on the play, and there may be some delays. But folks, JimCornette.com, Cornette's Collectibles, get your order in now. Because it could take a while, especially if I can only send them out to like 10 at a time. And I will not plug any products because we know that sometimes creates a panic. That's the post office update. You know, we need good quality go-getters, upward motivated people to work at the post office. People, I know a guy named Adam Pierce would be perfect for the U.S. Postal Service, because they apparently don't appreciate him in his current job.
Well, it sounds like someone saw some clips from SmackDown.
Oh, good Lord. Have you told the people, Brian? Have you told the people? Have you told the people what the fucking hell you sent me to watch? This was on Raw?
No, I believe it was on SmackDown, I think.
Was it on SmackDown? Whatever. It was on one of the programs that we didn't watch.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I think it was SmackDown, but now you're making me question whether it was. But a bunch of people had asked about the idea that Roman Reigns was now apparently a bad guy. I have no idea what show it was. I'm trying to think in my head as I'm talking. Was it on Raw or SmackDown? I don't even know.
It had to be. It was on Raw because it was the night after the pay-per-view, right?
Okay, so then it would have been Raw. Okay.
See, I don't even watch. I know better than you, and I don't even watch this shit.
I don't watch it either.
You're the one that asked me to watch this. I blame you for a lot of these things.
The people asked you to watch this.
All right, the point is, tell them what we watched, Brian.
Well, if
you can.
I don't know what to say about it.
The signing.
It was the contract signing for the Universal title match, which took place yesterday as we're recording.
We've seen a lot of contracts signed here lately, haven't we?
We have. Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman versus Roman Reigns, and we got to see Adam Pierce, now getting some prominent time on WWE TV, his backstage odyssey to get this contract signed by all 3 participants.
Hey, we'll talk about the contract signing on AEW later on when we talk about that. We saw a contract signing recently on NXT where the fucking contract literally blew up in a guy's face. And I was going to say at least this contract signing between Reigns and Fiend and Braun won't blow up in their face, but it will when they see this fucking abortion of a match they're probably going to have. It'll really blow up in their face. Then
they had the match yesterday.
Oh, good God. Well, so we've missed it.
Yes.
Did it stink?
I didn't hear any reviews of it.
Because the build-up sure did. Let's get to the fucking build-up. The point is, Vince gives Adam Pierce the task of going and getting the contract. Now, Normally, if they're going to have a contract signing of the World Championship or the Universal Championship or whichever belt they're defending, they'll bring out the table, put it in the ring, have it on television, make a big deal out of it. That's what they did over on with the other folks. But in this one, Vince just sells Adam Pearce on the match like he needs to convince Adam that it's a great match. And then task him with just going around, find him in the locker room and get the goddamn. Is Adam Pearce the vice president of talent relations these days? But bless Vince, he looked old and he sounded old. And he was, I hate to see an automaton or a space alien age. You never think these things are going to happen with somebody that's not actually human like Vince. But anyway. So Pierce has got to go around and get the contract signed by these three Nimrods. And the first place he shows up is there's Bray Wyatt in the Firefly Funhouse with the puppets and the fucking music. And the knock on the door comes and he opens the door and there's Adam, who is suddenly surprised to find himself in a postman's outfit. He's dressed in a mailman's uniform. And he obviously is trying to sell, like, how did this happen? So they're now making one of their, I guess, alleged executives, if he's got the power to get a contract signed for the World Championship, they're making them participate in what is obviously somebody's bad acid flashback and is not really something that's going on without their fucking cooperation. It's not really, he didn't just suddenly beam into a goddamn fun house somewhere in the goddamn basement in a mailman's outfit. So this is all garbage now automatically before they say a fucking word. And Adam Pearce tries to, because I like Adam and I felt so sorry for him and he had to be embarrassed. He's got to try to fucking somehow plausibly pull this off like he's intimidated by this fucking goofy shit. And his Bray Wyatt's friend, the Fiend, or whatever, and he gets the contract signed there, and he leaves the fucking Firefly Funhouse. And I wish that everybody could leave the Firefly Funhouse permanently, because it's just fucking embarrassing. So then he goes to Braun Strowman, who puts on his strongman yell voice and recites the lines that were given him, and no, wait. First, he encountered fucking Drew Gulak, who is fucking Gulak. Well, you say tomato, I say tomato. Drew Gulak. Drew Gulak is once Braun Strowman, and Drew Gulak is a fucking about knee high to a grasshopper. He's not bigger than a fucking hiccup. And he grabs a chair and goes and whacks Braun Strowman over the back with it from behind as hard as he can. And Braun Strowman doesn't sell it and turns around and runs him off. And then he cuts a fucking stagey promo and he said, blah, blah, blah. He'll sign the thing if you get me Gulak. So then he goes out and he throws Drew Gulak around. Okay, well, yes, he should. There wasn't anything wrong with that part. And then he signed, and then they finally go to Roman Reigns' locker room, and Roman Reigns says yes, blah, blah, blah. His promo, which was okay, laid back, wouldn't need to be, mad or whatever. He's very confident because he starts into Heyman's build up to the catchphrase, it's not a fucking prediction, it's a spoiler, which he does, and then you widen out and see Paul Heyman sitting there. So that's fucking tremendous. They've actually finally decided to put Roman Reigns in the spot that probably people have wanted to see him in for a while, and he can't miss with fucking Heyman in his fucking corner. But you spend the first half of this process building this thing with goddamn tomfoolery and ridiculousness, with either stupid shit that can't possibly happen and nobody believes, or undercard, underneath talent being thrown in the fucking mix or whatever. I think, Heyman and fucking Roman Reigns together will get nuclear heat, and Paul will fucking obviously, you know, they've wanted to boo Roman Reigns for quite some time, but Paul will put the icing on that fucking cake, and they'll probably draw some money when they have some serious opponents if they can find some. But this goddamn Fiend Wyatt and his fucking, you know, goddamn, what is it? Angel Dust fucking angles, and that big fucking schlub Braun Strowman, that may even be over fucking Paulie's head at this point. What do you think?
I think this is something they should have done a while ago, so it'll be interesting now. I mean, there aren't really crowds there, so you're not getting any true reactions. So is it too little too late, or will it work now? I think it's a good move to do something different with him, but again, they should have done a hard heel turn with him a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't know what this says about the future of Brock. Is he still under contract?
I don't know. It's not my week to watch him. I don't know. Ask Heyman. He's got all of his fucking paperwork. I'm sure he has all of his paperwork, credit cards. He's probably got everything.
Let me ask you, real quick, let me ask you a question about this. So Heyman's now managing, although I don't know if they want us to use the word managing, but he's managing Roman Reigns.
Well, that is what we have been led to believe by this past week's fucking events.
Now, last night on pay-per-view, Roman Reigns won the Universal title with Paul Heyman.
Right.
What do you think it's like for Heyman? I mean, he was in charge of Raw for, I forget how long it was, but it was several months. And now he's back there as just a talent. Do you think that's a hard position to be in, or is it easy to adapt back to not having creative input beyond what you're doing?
Well, if Paul wants to do something, it's easy for him to adapt to it. And if he doesn't, it's not. And I don't know what his whole deal is, but it seems to me like if he doesn't mind, you know, being fucking jerked around back and forth in different positions and told different shit, if he just wants to because if they're shooting in pretty much the same place, even though he has to travel in a pandemic, it's not like he's got to be on the road. I have said before, I don't know why at his age and his obvious physical condition that he would want to do any of this shit, be on the road every week from Washington State to Florida to fucking New York to Boston to Canada. He went to goddamn Saudi Arabia. I think he's out of his rabbit ass mind just to want to do that for any amount of money. He's only, 3 or 4 years younger than me. I like to mention that every chance I get. Look at the state of him, and look at me. I'm 199 and a half pounds. But anyway, but you know, now he just has to go to fucking Orlando and tape on a closed set, and I assume get the same amount of money that he was getting to do, you know, fly all over the world as Brock's manager. So if that's the case, yeah, that's a fucking step up. If I'd have been him, I wouldn't have wanted the goddamn job they gave him in charge of Raw because A, that's a lot of fucking work. B, I don't know why the fuck he thinks that he can save any of this shit these days. He's very good, but he's not a goddamn magician. This business is shot. 3, once again, for fuck's sake, that, as we've talked about, that is one of the jobs that is set up to put somebody in it that you can fire, which is why Triple H has never had one of them, because you can't fire the family members. They fired Bruce. They fired Bishop. They fired Heyman. I don't know why Paul took a job that he knew he was going to get fired from anyway to do something that I can't understand why the fuck he's still interested in. So this, yeah. He's just got to fucking go to Orlando and on a closed set fucking cut promos and manage the top guy in the fucking company. This is a fucking step up from all the other shit he was doing. Or at least it's a step easier. That's what I'd be looking for at this point. And when I said also he and Reigns get nuclear heat together, not in a building in front of, 50 fucking professional fans, but if they didn't do this, or they shouldn't have done this, unless they are assuming that this pairing of Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns will finally be where it's supposed to be around SummerSlam next year or WrestleMania 2022. If they're not thinking a year and a half out, and there probably will be fans by then, and they will be getting fucking molten reactions from those fans. You know, if they're just they are for the next 3 months, we'll do well and fuck it anyway. Why? And I can't imagine Paul would start this and it not be a long-term thing.
All right, so those are your thoughts about the heel turn of Roman Reigns.
But I'll tell you what, you want to take a bet on it? You want to bet on it, pal? Huh?
Bet on what?
You want to bet on whether this is a fucking short-term marriage or a long-term commitment with Paul Lee and Roman Reigns? You want to bet on whether it works or not? You want to bet on who wins? You want to just bet on something? You want to bet?
Sure.
Okay, well, one of our old friends is back. My bookie. My bookie is back. And by God, we didn't learn jack shit about betting last time from the listeners who tried to explain it to us, and we didn't win the $1 million I thought we were going to win through this, but a bunch of the listeners won all kinds of money because they know how this shit works, right? So, apparently now, winning season has returned at my bookie, and winning season means doubling your first deposit. Winning season means Survivor, Super Contests, and Squares. I guess they're betting on who wins Survivor. I don't fucking know. The good part about it is you who know how to bet on shit out there in my audience can fucking win $1 million at this shit because you know what you're doing. And at my bookie, winning season means hitting all your parlays and props with your feet up. I didn't know there was a bet you had to make specifically with your feet raised, but we're learning shit all the time. But you can watch your team trounce their rivals. Rejoice. It's time to celebrate the NFL season. All this and more, and using the promo code JCE, you can double your first deposit. New players get up to $1,000 in free play designed to add more excitement to the sports you love and the games that you bet on. From live betting to championship futures, every play you want to make is waiting at my bookie. Make your picks, win big, collect your cash, and use promo code JCE and double your first deposit because, Brian, your winning season begins today only at my bookie. No, your winning season doesn't begin because you and I don't know how to fucking do this shit. But for all you folks that like to bet, you'll retire off this. My bookie.
All right, well, from the sports book to some questions here. We have questions
to the cookbook.
To the cookbook. We have questions that have been sent in to CornyDriveThru.
To serve man.
You know, I just saw that the other day on Twilight Zone. But questions have been sent in on Twitter using the hashtag CornyDriveThru. Or
it takes all kinds of critters to make Farmer Vincent's fritters.
Via email, the CornyDriveThru.
I'm going to think of as many cannibalism fucking taglines of movies as I possibly... No, go ahead. How did they send these in?
Well, I just said exactly how on Twitter using the hashtag CornyDriveThru or via email to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. A very popular topic the last several days, Jim. I'll read this question. Sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from E in Texas.
E!
Wanted to let you guys know I'm a huge fan of the shows. As a wrestling fan, I enjoy listening to Jim's point of views and the stories he tells about the old school wrestling, along with his reviews for WWE and AEW. But I gotta ask, Jim... But I gotta ask Jim...
Okay.
If he saw Kenny Omega on the Thunderdome for SmackDown this Friday, Kenny even said on his tweet that he didn't think they were going to recognize him.
Well, I can understand why he would make that assumption, but that wasn't fucking Kenny Omega. That was somebody that put Kenny Omega's picture in one of their fucking virtual seats, and then Olivier was yanking people's leg when he said, I didn't think anybody would notice. What I'm surprised about is that any of the fans watching the Thunderdome knew who Kenny Olivier was to begin with. That's what the surprising thing. But no, it wasn't fucking him for fun. Well, it was like the time one of the, goddamn, it wasn't the bushwhackers, the sheep whackers, the fucking Highlanders. The modern day, no, it wasn't Butch
the
and
Highlanders. Yeah, I remember them.
The Highlanders were at Universal in Orlando taping TNA at the soundstage and it's WrestleMania weekend, and our date happened to fall on that. We're where we always are, but they're in fucking Orlando, WrestleMania that year. This was what, 10, 11 years ago, 12 maybe. And as they're panning the crowd, waiting for a match to start and getting a good setup shot to pull out of to the ring or whatever, one of the guys in the truck says, well, that's fucking so-and-so. Well, I didn't know who's fucking so-and-so. That's one of the Highlanders from the day. It was literally one of the Highlanders. When they were working for the WWE, the guy was sitting in the audience at fucking TNA Wrestling. And Jeff Jarrett said, what the fuck? He said, can we show him? I said, he's in your fucking crowd. And just asked Keith Mitchell, I think, can we put his name up? And they said, well, the name is copyrighted, the Highlanders, right? So they got on their phone or whatever and found what his real name was. They said, okay, well, this is the guy's real name. You can't copyright that. He's in our soundstage in the crowd at our television. And they put him up with his real name on the chyron, and the announcer said, boy, everybody's in town to watch TNA wrestling this week. And it wasn't goddamn, what was it? A month later, they fucking bid him a fond farewell and future endeavored him. That is a single, probably to this day, stupidest thing I've ever seen anybody in the wrestling business do is relates to their employment. Back when Vince did consider TNA competition on WrestleMania weekend, when they're in the same town, the guy is seen in the crowd watching the competition.
Remember, it was a few months back where Britt Baker was in the crowd at NXT during an Adam Cole match, and they showed her several times, and I believe I read that she did an interview where she said they specifically said they wouldn't do that, and then they specifically did that.
Yeah, and the only reason she can get fired from AEW is because it's being run by a fucking amateur. Or else that would have been an instantaneous notice. That would have been a video notice in any other wrestling company down through history. If someone was on the prime competitor, you've had instances where people showed up, through being booked or a third party thing or some fucking local thing that some big star came over to help a friend or whatever, but actually in the middle of a rivalry amongst the promotions that considered themselves the top two or under the umbrella of the top two down through history, that would have been an immediate fucking notice. Or an immediate fuck you right after a fucking notice.
All right, well, we got another question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Nicholas McGee in Benton Harbor, Michigan, the home of Bobo Brazil.
Well, see, already I'm doubting this guy's identity.
Why?
Well, it sounds too put up.
Okay, well, here's his question. Matt Cardona, formerly known as Zack Ryder, recently spoke about his hatred of the term jobber. Here's the quote. I hate the term jobber. And when somebody uses the term jobber, I hate it. A jobber to me is Dwayne Gill before he was Gilbert. That's a jobber. If you're on television, you're not a jobber. Win, lose, or draw, you're not a jobber.
Wait a minute. Dwayne Gill was on television before he was Gilbert, when he was a jobber.
Every week, yeah.
Every week, yeah.
I hate internet marks who use that term. It's not a real word. I was in WWE for how long? I don't think anybody in the back calls anyone a jobber.
My God.
It's an outside-looking in term.
My God.
No one is like, hey, Hawkins, you lost 100 times in a row, you jobber. I think people use it incorrectly. The boys don't use it at all. It's internet people and people who think they are smart who use it, God. And it pisses me off.
Wait a minute. Are you trying to tell me that this guy out in public said that he thinks that the word jobber or job guy is a term that the fans made up and that the boys don't use?
I don't know if he thinks it's a term the fans made up. He seems to be indicating that it's only.
Well, that's what he's saying. It's up for the marks and on the internet, but the boys don't.
That they use it, not that they made it up.
Well, he said it's not a real fucking word. He's completely oblivious to any of the 110 years of history out of this 120-year-old business before he showed up, is what he is. He's a fucking idiot. Yes, there's jobbers and there's job guys. And the only reason that the fucking guys up there, well, the reason why the guys don't use it now possibly is because these fucking guys don't use any of the goddamn wrestling terminology properly. And probably, I would say 99.9% of them can't speak fucking carny if their life depended on it either. Because they've fucking got away from the wrestling business into whatever this fucking nightmare is that they're involved in now. It's not a shame to be a job guy. You need job guys. Job guys help. That's why they call them job guys, because they were doing a job. They were carpenters to help build the fucking house. And some of them were more talented than others, and some of them were there just as meat to chop. But the reason why they don't say it up there is because Vince decided enhancement talent was somehow more fucking palatable than job guys. But every generation of wrestlers in the history of wrestling has used job guys, been job guys when they first started out, or beaten job guys once they started getting put over. It's like, fuck it. Are you going to just change the name of Kleenex because you don't like Kleenex? That's what it is.
Well, again, he was in a company that changed the name of wrestling. It's sports entertainment. It's not wrestling.
Well, they changed the way it looked also. That's why we're in this fucking mess. But no, he's a complete fucking idiot. Is basically what all of them are basically at this point. This is why I have so much disdain. He could come out and he could say, well, they called them job guys in the old days. Maybe that was a touch disrespectful, even though it wasn't meant that way. It was an industry term. The way that the fans use it is often disrespectful, but the fans shouldn't be using these terms anyway, because none of us big mouth fucking asshole wrestlers should have ever fucking spilled the beans and opened our mouth and told them to begin with. So it's our fault, really. He could have said something like that.
Do you think maybe he's sensitive to the term jobber because of the way he was used over the past 10 years in WWE?
Well, yeah, that's where I first thought it was going, because that's also what most people have said that he was for the past 10 years, a fucking job guy. He looks like goddamn Lex Luger and Andre the Giant rolled into one in, All Friends Wrestling, where everybody's, playing and they've...
And there's no drug testing.
I wonder at the AEW locker room door, do they have the fucking thing that says you must be this tall to wrestle? I'm just wondering. But anyway.
I don't think so.
Ahead.
Based on some of the people I've seen on their show, I don't think so.
You know what Matt Cardona needs, in my opinion, Brian?
I don't know which transition this is, no.
He needs some psychological help, and I know exactly where he can find it. Because if he's frustrated with his career and it's made a mental impression on him like this, he needs to call the folks at BetterHelp. The folks at BetterHelp, whether you've got a bullshit problem like Matt Cardona, or whether you've got an actual real legitimate problem like so many people do these days, and they don't have access to therapy, they don't have a place they can go in their community, somebody they can talk to, whatever they can. They don't want to go out in public now. BetterHelp assesses your needs and matches you with your own licensed professional therapist. Professional counseling done securely online with a broad range of expertise available, which is available in most cases for clients worldwide. Everything may not be locally available in some areas, but you'll get timely and thoughtful responses. You can schedule weekly video or phone sessions so you don't have to sit in waiting rooms or, as we mentioned, go out in a dangerous public. But BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change the counselors if you need to. But they want you to start living a happier life today. And we've had a bunch of people write in, Brian, emails over the course of the time we've been talking about BetterHelp on the program that they testified that it legitimately helped them out. So you can check and see if it'll do the same thing for you. And if you go to BetterHelp.com/drive, that's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, by the way, BetterHelp.com/drive, you will get 10% off your first month 10% off the first month's services at betterhelp.com/drive. I'm telling you, the people at BetterHelp can help Matt Cardona get out of his funk about his failed career, and they can help you too.
All right. Well, I'm sure he'll appreciate it.
They can help you, Brian.
I'm fine. What do you mean?
Are you good?
I'm good.
I could take issue with that sometimes, but nevertheless, here we go.
Well, a few more questions before these long-anticipated reviews on this program. This next one was sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Citizen Beeswax. If that is indeed his real name.
Well, now I can believe that name.
Hi, Jim and Brian. How are you? I'm fine.
Well, we're good too.
Recently, I was watching a shoot interview with Shane Douglas, where he discusses how Scott Hall would sabotage their matches by throwing off the timing. He uses terms such as the stutter step and lead ass. This was the first time I had heard these terms in wrestling. What do they exactly mean, and can you elaborate a little bit on how wrestlers can sabotage each other by disrupting the timing of specific spots during a match? This topic fascinates me because I haven't heard it talked about too much. Thank you and keep up the great work.
Well, lead ass kind of speaks for itself. You can either go up for somebody or make it easy for them to lift you or move you around or put you in position where you need to be, or then you can have lead in your ass and it's like an act of Congress to do the same thing. Or that can, make you look shitty, even though the person that you're trying to lift or move or throw or whatever is the one doing it. It makes you look like a piece of shit. Or the stutter step, trying to, for example, when you see the guys that can really hit the ropes well, Brian, right? When they're hitting the ropes, you're doing a crisscross and everybody's smooth, right? Like Shawn Michaels in his day, hitting those ropes, or Terry Gordy hitting the cables, where everything's smooth and everybody's moving at the same speed, and then they do a spot, a drop down, leapfrog, whatever the fuck, right? Drop kick. If one of those people varies their fucking step or pace, a stutter step, not a full stride, and you can make it look as you're turning to hit the ropes, you can just throw a little fucking halfway stutter step in there and throw the whole goddamn fucking thing off. And then it looks like the other guy, but not you. If he's going up for a drop kick, a guy that's going up for a drop kick when a guy's coming off the ropes, the guy that's drop kicking is leaping up in the air while the other guy is still into the ropes and is bowing them out and preparing to come off, right? You've got to have that timing. And when you feel that crisscross or the fucking movement or what, to jump, boom, the guy's going to be there. Well, if the guy takes that stutter step, he's going to be there maybe a second and a half late, and that's all it takes, and you fall on your ass or you look like a fucking idiot. Or whatever the fuck. It just, the better a worker that a guy is, the more he is able to make you look either fantastic or like a complete piece of shit. Whichever one he wants to. It just depends. And the guy fucking the deal up will not look like the guy to the fans that's fucking the deal up. It'll be the other guy.
To the specific example that he cited in the question, Shane Douglas and Razor Ramon, Scott Hall. What do you remember about that? Because there obviously were some chemistry issues, and I think there was a story later on, maybe a couple of years later in ECW. Scott Hall tried to go to a show maybe in Florida, and Candido and Douglas wouldn't let him in. Because they had both, Candido felt very similar about the way the Clique treated him. But do you remember anything about Shane Douglas and Scott Hall?
Well, now, back up to the start of the question, which one said the other one was, Shane Douglas said Scott Hall was stutter stepping him and sandbagging him, right? Yes, well, I can believe that. Here's the thing. I know Shane, was a good athletic worker back in those days. He started getting a little heavy and everything in ECW and the injuries and etc. But if you couldn't, Scott Hall could work with almost anybody, and Shane was not a fucking slouch either. But if you couldn't have a fucking match with Candido, then that just meant either you can't have a fucking match, and since we know Scott Hall could have a match, that meant he didn't want to, because he didn't see those guys. It was all part of the clique thing. He didn't see those guys as on his level, and he shouldn't be. Not only should he not be booked with them, but also that's the kind of shit that they did to make their point when they said, "Oh, this guy's a shits," because they were going to push Shane for a while there. Poor Chris was always doomed as soon as he became a body Donna. But, they would tell Vince that, "Oh, this guy's a shits, he can't work, or he's too indie, or he's too outlaw, or whatever." And then if Vince saw a fucking match and the guy looked like shit, that would reinforce their position. I'd never seen anything like this. That's why I was fucking miserable most of the time when those guys were there, because I'd never seen shit going on like this to this extent, out in the open. Nobody knew anything about it. Fucking lunacy.
Beyond the clique, and besides the poorly thought out Dean Douglas gimmick, did Shane rub people the wrong way up there, or was Shane fitting in? How was Shane?
No,
received?
Shane rubbed people the wrong way, obviously, because they didn't. The gimmick was the shits, and I think everybody knew that. And, the clique did not want Dean Douglas. The whole thing, it was silly in their midst. Shane was a good worker, but also Shane, at that point, had been convinced by Paul E. that he was better than he was. So, of course, he's rubbed some people the wrong way because and he was better than Dean Douglas, but he wasn't probably as good at that point in time as fucking Paul E. had made him think he was. So that mid-90s Shane, it was kind of back. And then he just started going on the tangents about Flair. Yes, when Flair was the fucking booker, he held him down because he was a fucking dynamic dude, and that was a rotten fucking gimmick too. And then they used Shane and Steamboat as a team, and I guess that when another time Flair got in power. But
no. Flair was in WWF when they did that.
Okay, but then it was...
He had just returned to WCW, excuse me.
Okay, but was there another incident? Was Shane Douglas mad at Ric Flair all these years over the way he held him down when he was a booker because of just the 89-90 booking run, or was there more in the early 90s WCW?
Shane, I think, returned to WCW at the end of 92, and he was there through early 93, and then they made Steamboat and Douglas Dos Hombres so they could put Tom Zink under a mask and people thought it was Shane. Flair had just come back. I don't know how much power Flair had when he first came back, because that was when Bill Watts got pushed out or quit and Eric Bischoff took over. So. Well,
the point is, and that was Shane Douglas's best period in the ring, if not in the business. In the ring, he and Steamboat, remember when the Heavenly Bodies went in, we worked with them, including an 8-man tag. It was Midnight and the Freebirds, I think, wasn't it? No, it was Midnight and the Blondes. My God, Midnight and Pillman and Austin against the Rock and Roll Express and Steamboat and Douglas, and an 8-man from Gainesville, Georgia. And that was a fun match. And it was a good, but then it was kind of embarrassing because the Rock and Roll and the Bodies were there part-time, and the people started chanting for the Rock and Roll while Steamboat and Douglas were their world tag team champions. Riggy Morton selling the Rock and Roll were more over than their champions at that point. So that was a little embarrassing. But nevertheless, that was Shane's best era in the ring. But in that case, I thought, honestly, all these promos, all these years that Shane had been cutting on Flair, something happened when Shane was more of a top guy in WCW in the 90s, because I can tell you exactly what fucking the whole problem was. We've talked about it on the show. When the dynamic dudes could only work with the Midnight Express because Jim Herd hated both teams. So we did that deal where the dudes fooled me into signing a contract where I got a single match with Shane on TV to draw a rating, which it did, a 3.2, as I recall. Try to get one of those these days, kids. And Shane got mad because I was going to throw the powder in his eyes and blind him, get some heat on him for a minute or two before he made a big comeback and bumped me around. And then they beat me. And then the fucking midnight jumped and we continued our program. And after we shot it in Greensboro and it got over and everything went fine, he called Jim Herd and said, I don't think I should be having to wrestle Jim Cornette on Saturday night TBS because I'm a serious athlete. And we, blah, 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 or whatever the fuck. And Herd, of course, was primed to do anything to mess with Flair's booking. And he was the booker and had approved this entire show. So he made us reshoot it, where I came out with the sling on my arm and fucking put Stan in the match, I believe, instead. And it still drew a rating because the people didn't know they were getting baited and switched, but they were baited and switched. And not only did that was to lead up, as we've mentioned, to the Midnight Express versus Bodies or Midnight Express versus Dudes matches, where they would win and get 5 minutes with me to get even for all the shit we'd done to them. But Flair heard that Shane had called Herd and gone over his head and said, basically, this fucking preliminary guy called the goddamn boss on my fucking booking. Fuck him. So we just beat them all the time, and they only once or twice out of like 30 matches ever got the 5 minutes with me, and never really got even with the Midnight Express. And since Herd hated both those teams, but Flair knew the Midnight Express were obviously a team he wanted to use, he just fucking stopped booking the goddamn Dynamic Dudes. But I can't believe I never knew that was the extent of the heat all these years. The Dick Flair promos and the shit where Shane would challenge Flair and call him over the hill.
Flair is dead. Those ECW fans were chanting, Flair is dead. Just from that,
Shane's a smart, now that I think about this, unless there's some other reason, I'd love to hear about it. But I like Shane as a person, but I found out a few years ago, you can't believe anything he says. He's not only a fucking bad Trump fuck, but he's a conspiracy theorist on everything. He believes all this shit. He thought Trump was a great president. Hillary Clinton was fucking murderer. And all these things that you see these fucking nutcases believe on the goddamn news, he thinks is a real deal. So he probably thought that Ric Flair, just because Flair, a year later, if he hadn't gone on, if Shane hadn't gone on about it, Flair might not even have fucking remembered. But that was Flair's fucking impression of Shane Douglas, this fucking preliminary babyface called over my head as I'm the booker, and who the fuck is this guy? And Shane Douglas at the time was nobody. And Shane never got to the point where he was 75% of Ric Flair in the standing in the community to begin with. But at the time, he's a fucking preliminary guy, calls the fucking boss on the booker. What do you think was going to happen? Shane was a school teacher. How did he think that was going to fucking play? Here's another thing. Now that I think about it, this modern day wrestling, these human relations departments or human resources, right? And all these goddamn corporate ownership, the fucking job guys and the curtain jerkers do have the ability to call the fucking boss and complain about the main event talent.
Even the merchandise weasels do.
Even the merchandise weasels, which is why there's another of the many reasons we're in the shit we're in. Here's my fucking thing. It's always everybody on the card is one of the boys. Everybody on the card needs to be treated with respect in the locker room. But if the fucking guy jerking the curtain in the first match calls the booker or the boss actually calls the promoter to complain about the booker, or calls the booker to complain about the main event guy, you're a fucking idiot, and you need gone quickly, and you ain't gonna make it in this fucking business. Fuck you. Anyway, speaking of fuck you and fucking underneath curtain jerking weasels, did you hear what wannabe MZ guy did this week? Wannabe MZ guy and his fucking goofy girlfriend?
I think I know who you're talking about, yes.
I don't want to mention this. He's another one of the hop on the Cornette bandwagon. If I can get Jim Cornette to argue with me, somebody will know that I'm alive, right? Besides my mother and possibly members of my immediate family. Some of these people, their dogs aren't even sure that they like these people. So this is another one of the hop on the Cornette bandwagon people. Actually, I argued with him first because he was running his dick liquor in public again on Twitter and making stupid statements. He's one of these people that in the past has had many suggestions on how I can modify my fucking behavior and just what's wrong with me. And he'll sit down and he'll enumerate these things. Like I said, to get me to yell at him because nobody knows who this fucking guy is. Actually, a few people do. I'll get to that in a second. He thinks I call him wannabe MZ because he thinks he's doing like a TMZ meets wrestling kind of thing. That's because have you ever seen that TMZ show to begin with? They actually introduce videos with some guy says, well, yeah, we sent a guy with a VHS camcorder to fucking walk up and get in the face of fucking noted rapper Putz McGee and ask him about global warming. And here's what he said. Well, and then Putz McGee says, yeah, man, that global warming, that's bad.
Well, the guy you're speaking of, that's actually where he started. He was at TMZ for a while.
Well, I heard he was the janitor at the building and he went to get coffee. And then they started a TMZ football team and he played guard, end, and tackle. He sat on the end of the bench, guarded the water, and tackled anybody that tried to fucking steal it. But anyway, it's this fucking joke of a human being. He's had all these ideas about what I need to modify. Come to find out, he wasn't stalking a porn star. That stalking is a strong word. Apparently, a bunch of people are on him because he's just creepy to a porn star. He apparently found out by a random tweet that this porn star that he's infatuated with, that he's been sending direct messages to or whatever, was like in a grocery store, and he not only showed up at that place, but he showed up with his girlfriend, so his girlfriend could go over and ask this fucking porn star if he could have her autograph, but he didn't want the porn star to think he was creepy, so he sends a girl over to do it. I think they're all creepy. And a bunch of people are on him about that. But he thinks there's ways I ought to modify my personal and romantic relationships. While he's not even got the guts to walk up to a porn star, for fuck's sake. But anyway, this idiot actually said he was referring to something that Tony Khan had done, right? Tony Khan had told the people at his taping, when they just let fans in at the AEW taping, said, please don't cuss and use profanity because we're on television. Well, this wannabe MZ tweets, well, where are all the people that are outraged when the WWE tries to mind control people and tell them how to react when Tony Khan of AEW does the same thing? Oh, fucking hell. And this guy supposedly, allegedly tells people he's in a television bit. This guy is to journalism and television what German bukkake flicks are to cinema. But he doesn't even know the difference between telling people how to react and telling people not to cuss at a television taping. And he gets some people trying to defend him saying, well, yeah, it's a TV-14 show and the talent can cuss. Why can't Number one, TV-14 doesn't mean that all 500 people in the building can chant, you fucked up, over and over again. Secondly, especially when it's live television, all of you TV experts out there, it's a pain in the fucking ass, even if you've got a guy with a finger on a 7-second delay button, to mute crowd chants without fucking up the rest of the program, because they bleed over the announcer audio, especially in nearly empty buildings, which is what you're dealing with AEW on a good night anyway. So it's complete idiocy. And something that every wrestling promotion that's ever done television has done, at least since the days of when people didn't have the good common sense that not to fucking cuss when they're at a TV taping. We never had to say that in the 80s, and the people legitimately hated us. But now that everybody's smart and knows it's a TV show, they want to scream fuck all the time on live wrestling TV shows. Fucking idiots. So anyway, I volunteered to take up for Tony Khan. And I tweeted back, I said, never mind, Tony, I got this one. And I told the dipshit how fucking stupid his statement was. And for all the reasons that I just enumerated, he knows that. He's just trying to be contrary, tries to argue with people because he wants people to notice him and his fucking wannabe MZ show. So when I did that, then of course he's trying to engage me to get a name and a reputation off the Cornette bounce. The Cornette bounce. And he decides to tell me how to modify my behavior, as I said, and mentioned, well, you must have had a bad cucking session. I said, no, actually, it's a fucking session, and you wouldn't know what those are since you only date the Four Sisters on Thumb Street. But then he actually, unless it's just him under another account, because I've heard people do that, don't they, Brian? They get other accounts and pretend to be other people so they can agree with themselves. But did his girlfriend or did his girlfriend not actually send out a tweet, much like Trent's mother on AEW in her minivan? Did he not have his girlfriend send out a tweet verifying that they had sexual relations that week so that we would all know?
I assume it's his girlfriend because she labeled herself as such, and why would anyone do that otherwise?
Do you have the transcript of his significant other's tweet that I said she has interjected herself in this situation so that I can read that or I can hear that?
I have it here, yes. Hey, Jim, I, Ryan's hot girlfriend, thought I'd pop in real quick to let you know he's had sex with me, his hot girlfriend, 5 times this week.
Well, I guess I stand corrected. He has had sex 5 times this week, but darling, I don't know what your name is, so I'll just say hot girlfriend. You better watch out, because the reason why you're so hot, if you had sex with him without wearing protection when you penetrated him, well, one sign of a sexually transmitted disease is a high fever. That may be why you are having this flushed, hot feeling. It can't be from your picture. Trust me on this. I put your picture in prison cells to cure the sex offenders. But if you're hot and you got a temperature, I would suggest wrapping that rascal the next time that you penetrate your boyfriend want a BMZ. And otherwise, just slink on off and stay the fuck where you belong, which is in your place, know your role, shut your mouth, and take some comfort in the fact that most people in the world that are hearing me speak now have no idea who the fuck you are or what you look like, so you are not completely and utterly humiliated. Thank you very much.
Honey, do me a favor. Can you write to this porn star and ask her if I could just meet her? And then when you're done with that, let Jim Cornette know I've actually had sex. Please, just let him know I've been laid. Anyone can anoint themselves a wrestling journalist. There's nothing else like it. There's nothing else like it. You don't see real journalists get into fights like these so-called wrestling journalists get into. And then anyone just is like, all of a sudden, I'm a wrestling journalist. Know nothing about wrestling, nothing about wrestling history.
But are there Star Wars journalists? The people that are really into Star Wars, I mean, hey, we're all fans of something, right? But the people that are really into Star Wars, do they start websites about Star Wars and critique the Star Wars movies and then become professional Star Wars journalists where they claim to have all the inside scoops about the next Star Wars and the people that produce and act in them? Are there Star Wars journalists, or is it just wrestling?
Well, there certainly are people who do what you said. They create websites and critique Star Wars, for example, and I don't know if they.
But I mean, are they ongoing journalists about this? Are they on top of every time that fucking George Lucas fucking leaves his house to take a shit in a fucking porta potty? Are they there to cover it?
No, I think wrestling is really unique with this, in that, in other things you'll hear, like, Star Wars blogger or something. But in wrestling, you have these people just say, I'm a journalist, and the media doesn't give a shit about wrestling by and large. So sometimes they even accept that these people who have made themselves journalists, who have declared themselves journalists, they're journalists. But in actuality, they're just jerk-offs begging for work.
Brian, I'd be a whole lot more comfortable right now if I was wearing my buttercloth shirt.
That was
I'm
transition out of nowhere.
I'm going to just jump right into it. Folks, we've been telling you, these buttercloth shirts, they are softer than a warm puppy's belly. I am telling you that. It's the world's most comfortable dress shirt. They sent me a variety of styles and colors. And even though I'm going nowhere, I put them on. I can't wait to go somewhere again in public so I can wear these because I put them on in my house and they're great, but nobody's seen them yet. But whether you're tall, whether you're stout, whether you're husky, whether you're portly, whether you're even bulbous and rotund, whether you're elongated, bowling pin shaped, they've got a range of sizes to fit your body type. Whether you're type positive or type negative, whatever it is, it makes you look like a Friday night but feel like a Sunday morning. They're not stiff. They're not scratchy. These folks have developed what they call a profoundly soft fabric. It's a special blend of 100% long fiber cotton, a unique magnifying manufacturing process.
That's right.
Stretches every which 6-way stretch. And you may have seen him on Shark Tank. Robert, the guy whose name I can't pronounce, invested Herjavec. Well, there you go. He invested a $250,000 in this. But right now they are featuring their new icy cotton collection. It's woven with organic mint fibers for a natural cooling effect. So especially here in the summertime, you can look, don't get those pity stains. Don't get the pity stains. Don't get the bat signal across your back where you're sweating through it. You're sweating like a fucking whore in church. And it reflects on your overall coolness, not only temperature-wise, but also appearance-wise when you have giant sweat stains on your shirt. Well, this is long fiber cotton for breathability. Long sleeve, short sleeve styles available, regular and tall. And our listeners can get 20% off their first purchase. Go to Buttercloth, Butter, butter, because that's how soft they are. Buttercloth.com/JCE. Get 20% off the first full price order. Buttercloth.com/JCE. 20% off these wonderful, soft, cuddly shirts.
My favorite is the mint cooling one. I wear that one all the time. That is maybe my favorite shirt in my entire collection right now.
Because ever since I've known you, you've been hot around the collar.
I guess so. Maybe those STDs.
Well, there you have it.
Previously said. I don't know.
Yes. I don't know which transition we're coming out of. What do you got? It's your turn.
Well, I guess we're not ready for the reviews yet. Let's get another question.
Well, you could have asked for a review, but now you've teased a question, so you can't take it back.
All right. We can't ask this one. Hold on. Let's go to this one.
Wait, you're skipping now? Was it for quality or content?
It's...
Yeah. All right, skip it.
Should I ask it? I don't know.
Well, now, what? Oh, how do you keep an idiot in suspense? I'll tell you tomorrow.
I once heard Andrew Dice Clay and Opie and Anthony like in 2000. He was just rattling off jokes. And he goes, how do you keep an idiot in suspense? Say nothing! And they're like, no, you say nothing. You don't say, the answer isn't say nothing. You literally say nothing.
He was reading it off his notes.
All right, I'll try this one. We'll see how this goes. This is sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Bruce Walmer in Springfield, Massachusetts. Hello, Jim and Brian. Thank you for the outstanding podcast. The walks down memory lane and keeping the spirit of real professional wrestling alive. My question is, was it common knowledge that Hillbilly Jim was gay, or was it hush-hush? I met him at an AVN show in Las Vegas. He was standing behind the Falcon Films booth, the #1 production company of high-quality gay porn. I asked him, why don't you wrestle anymore? And he pointed to the owner of Falcon Films and says, he doesn't want me wrestling. Any comment or knowledge of this fact?
Oh, my God.
Let me just add, Hillbilly Jim, a tremendously nice guy.
Yes, Hillbilly Jim is one of the nicest and funniest and brightest and smartest guys. And apparently, he's also one of the premier ribbers in the fucking industry. I guarantee you, Hillbilly Jim is there to do the fucking Coliseum home video or whatever the fuck he was doing or whatever he's done with the or just visiting the if it was AVN. He's just visiting or whatever, and he's standing there probably trying to figure out which porn star he's going to go look at next. And this guy fucking wanders up and asks him that question. He says, well, I'm working for him now. And he believed it. And to this day has carried it with him to the point where he had to fucking ask me, holy fuck. Hillbilly Jim, if you asked him, he would say he's not gay. He's just friendly. Oh, for fuck's sake. That's ridiculous.
What are you saying is ridiculous? The fact that, are you saying
I'm saying the fact that Hillbilly Jim was probably there to look at fucking porn stars like everybody else, unless he was doing some kind of home video thing at some adjoining non-pornography fucking video convention. And he's just standing there and this guy asked him a fucking question and he's fucking with the guy and the guy believed it. And to this day thinks Hillbilly Jim not only is gay, which he's not, but was a gay porn star, which he was not. It's fucking ridiculous. I can see Hillbilly Jim fucking doing that because he is quick and he will give you a fucking answer with a straight face and make you believe anything. But goddamn, that's stretching it.
I know you know the creator of AVN, but I've never personally been to an adult video news convention. Do they typically have wrestlers there? I mean, will Vivid Video all of a sudden be like, we have Greg Valentine here today. Come by the booth and meet Greg Valentine.
Well, no. What I'm saying is that sometimes these adult video conventions take place in Las Vegas along with or in conjunction with or at the same time of like the Consumer Electronics Show and fucking other mainstream video conventions or different things. So it's not, and obviously if there's wrestlers in the same vicinity as there's porn stars, there's going to be some crossover, just people walking around fucking looking. So I don't necessarily think that Hillbilly Jim was booked at the porn convention. I can believe he was there, and I am dumbfounded that this guy believed the fucking bullshit rib answer that Hillbilly Jim gave him to his question, that he was working for, as he points to the fucking gay video booth, that he was working for them now. I just saw Jim 2 or 3 years ago, and he had at that point not added gay porn star to his resume.
You ever seen on Showtime? I don't know if they still have them. For a while, they were airing late night. You'd be going past the different movie channels. Like, what is this? It was the AVN Awards show. And they had like even like a red carpet for all the.
Oh, I know, and it's great because they have like best 3-way and best anal sex scene and lifetime anal achievement award or whatever, and the golden throat. I don't know. It's fucking fantastic. It's fascinating, is what it is.
I'm so happy. I can't believe this industry has taken me in. To know that I've won best cock is just the greatest achievement of my life. Thank you all. I look forward to fucking more next week.
But hey, you know what? Porn stars are the only honest and legitimate people when it comes to matters of the flesh. We like to do what we like to do, and we don't care who we do it with as long as they want to do it with us. That's their motto. Everybody should be like that. There'd be more happiness. There'd be more flesh. Yes, there would be more happiness. And like, oh, have you met my wife? She's also my co-star. Oh, have you met my husband? He's also my co-star. Oh, we'd like to co-star with you. Well, there you go. No bitter, hard feelings.
For a second, I was like, what the hell? What spot is he transitioning to? What sponsor is he going to dare go to from this? Luckily, you didn't. Let's get another question.
Well, I will say that if you're into meat.
No, you can't do that. You can't do that.
All right, give me another question.
One more question, and then we'll go on to meat and the reviews and everything else. Here's our next question. This was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Vinny in Staten Island, New York. What do you make of Hakushi's run in WWE? It started out with a lot of potential. He was great in the ring, had a really cool look, and had a solid feud with Bret Hart. Then, all of a sudden, he loses to Barry Horowitz, turns babyface, forms a job tag team with Horowitz, then he gets released shortly thereafter. Was it a language barrier issue? Did he piss someone off? Or something else?
Well, he had a great match, rivalry. I don't know if I would call it a feud. It didn't last that long, but he had great matches with Bret because Bret liked his work and wanted to work with him. Imagine how that turns out. Because he's a great worker. He's a great athlete. His work was fucking great. The problem was, I think, if Vince was naturally predisposed not to I don't say dislike the guy personally or even as a talent, but not to want to push the guy because he couldn't fucking talk. He couldn't do promos. And in the WWF of that time, if they had the idea to, the motivation to, the desire to bring Hakushi in and put him with a manager and make him a top heel, and and I don't know about the fucking full body goddamn tattoo business, but that may have looked cool if he'd had other kind of badass outfit, whatever. He just, that might have worked. And if Bret had worked with him like that, and some of the other guys worked with him like that, but they just brought him in and put him on the card, and he's at that time, especially in the WWF, nondescript Japanese guys that don't have big names and don't have great gimmicks and aren't featured in main events, we're not going to get over with that audience. And honestly, they're not probably going to get over on anything past the hardcore fans today. But when I say that, I realize that nothing gets over today past the hardcore fans. That's the only one we got left. But, so Bret had a main event match with him because the guy was a main event level talent, but the gimmick was big and he couldn't do promos, but they didn't give him a fucking manager. Or maybe was he in a group of some of these multi-man groups when they did the Survivor Series? He might have had somebody talking for. He wasn't featured.
He had a manager. I don't know. I don't remember him doing promos, but he may have. Akio Sato. Remember he had white face paint.
Yes, well, then they and they give Sato, because Sato lived in Kansas City, by the way. They didn't have to bring him in from Japan.
Who was he married to? He was married to a wrestler, wasn't he?
He was married to was it Betty Nikolai?
That may be it.
Maybe it. But so then here's a manager that nobody had ever seen before in the WWF, or hadn't seen as a manager, and maybe he worked there briefly 10 years before. And so now you got a Japanese guy that we've never seen before in the middle of the card with a manager we've never seen before. You see where this is going. I don't know why they did it. They could have had another fucking guy in that spot to do everything Hakushi did because, they didn't do anything with Hakushi. So Bret was trying to get them to get his stock to rise in the office's eyes and get them to see more in him because he liked him as an athlete and as a worker. But that only went so far.
Hey, something just popped up on my Twitter feed. This may be worth playing for a second. Roy Lucier just retweeted this. It's a Spanish interview with Randy Macho Man Savage from 1986. So it has the WWF logo in the background with it.
I didn't even know Randy spoke Spanish.
Well, I don't think he's the one speaking Spanish, but it was for the Spanish broadcast of WWF TV. Like, it's not Gene Okerlund. It's someone, I think it's Miguel Alonso, actually. But let's play this. You may get a kick out of this.
We have to talk different languages, even if it doesn't have to be specific, but in general, yeah, because I am the champion, cannot be denied. Hulk Hogan cannot be denied, yeah, except the Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion, because all of a sudden, I'm more important than Hulkamania. Yeah, talking about Macho Madness, and it's true. And you can talk about music from different people around the country, and you can say that Pink Floyd makes you think. But you can't say that Jim Croce is the reason for living if you haven't believed it in the past. Because if it's in the past, it's got roots. And I've got roots. Yeah, I've paid my dues, and I have the championship belt that I have at this particular time. And some people get something that they really want. But they can't hold on to it any longer. No, because they give it away. They ain't ready for that big chance.
Muy bien, dice que ha sentado un precedente. Un precedente. Eso es, que ha sentado raíces con su gran figura de campeón. No es ni Tito Santana ni Rick Steamboat el campeón. Y Hulk Hogan es mucho menos cuando Macho Man se decida a ir por el campeonato mundial completo de la WWF.
Yeah, life is something funny at times, but then life can be real descriptive and then have it right out there in front of you, but then they throw you a curve and the wind blows and get bad weather. Yeah, so you don't really know what's going to happen from time to time, except you can think a lot, yeah, and you can ponder on what you're going to do to different people if you get the opportunity, and then when you got them down, you have to take advantage of a situation. And I say keep them down, because somewhere later in life, they may get up and put you down and learn that valuable lesson, but I don't have to learn a valuable lesson. I've used mental telepathy a lot of times, and certain people that were in certain positions didn't understand what I was thinking, but they'll pay. Yeah, they'll pay. Yeah, they'll pay, man, they'll pay. Yeah, they will. I guarantee you they'll pay.
En pocas palabras, cuando llega la oportunidad hay que aprovecharla, y él usa telepatía más bien para lograr sus grandes propósitos. El fabuloso Randy Savage Macho Man.
Yeah, pay, man. Yeah, everybody pays the fiddler.
Wow.
Hey, I tell you, I don't speak Spanish, but I can interpret Randy Savage there.
What was he saying?
Well, I don't know exactly what happened, but he was, at that particular television taping, he was told some news that contraindicated some news that he was told before, and he's not happy about it. And then he was told, yeah, now we're doing international interviews. And what you had to do was you had to go and do your interview. Back in they eliminated the fucking translator and everything by the time the 90s came along. But in those days, besides the English interviews, the local interviews, and the different promos you do for the TV show when you were at TV all day, you get there at noon, you do interviews in those fucking rooms in the back, sometimes until midnight, except you went out and wrestled. But the international interviews, that Spanish guy, the Spanish announcer, was supposed to be translating Macho Man Randy Savage's fucking promo about his goddamn opponents, or about what he was saying, what he was talking about, who he was mad at. And Savage was pissed off and didn't want to do a goddamn interview for international television where he was going to be speaking in English, and he knew this dipshit wasn't going to be able to fucking translate it anyway. And if you notice, the translator throws in a bunch of words and names of challengers that Savage had never even mentioned. And Savage is venting about how, sooner or later, a worm's going to turn a wind. You don't know which way the wind's blowing. You think one thing and then something else happened. Yeah, he's fucking pissed at the office, and he deliberately gave that translator gibberish to translate and was having fun doing it.
I use mental telepathy a lot of times. Did you have to do a lot of those? A lot of those international interviews?
Did I?
Yeah.
Well, no, as I said, they had quit doing it was unwieldy, but also the volume of interviews that we were doing in the early and mid 90s were such that they didn't have the foreign language announcers standing by there to do those stand-ups and translates. They already had 4 or 5 sometimes pre-tape rooms built in the bowels of the building, in the arenas, where they would take the soundproofing and the anvil cases, and they would make little tiny rooms. And goddamn, they were hot and stuffy. And they're only about 12 feet square for a producer and a cameraman and an audio guy and the talent in front of a backdrop. And then you'd go from one room to another doing these fucking, one was for superstars, one was for Wrestling Challenge, one was for local promos, one was for international. And by that point, you'd do a 30 or 40 second pre-tape, and they would plug it into the international show, and what they did with it from there, I have no fucking idea. Maybe the announcers translated it after they played it. I don't fucking know. I don't care. But we didn't have to actually talk to the guy that was translating on camera by that point. But yeah, and see, that's the thing. It took you halfway through that thing to realize that Randy Savage was never going to make a goddamn lick of sense, because he still had that delivery and that way of saying things where it was words and you knew they were words, and you figured sooner or later you'd figure out what he was talking about, right? Of course, you never did there, but Savage could say shit that didn't make sense, but he said it in such a way that it sounded like it meant something. Anyway, you know what else he was good at, Brian?
What's that? Baseball.
Grilling steaks.
Oh, and grilling steaks.
Especially as long as he didn't have to purchase those steaks. If he could just grill them instead of purchasing them. You know, the Poffos were tight with $1. But anyway, folks.
Didn't he get busted for stealing steaks in Kroger?
He did. As a matter of fact, when he was living in Lexington, he did get busted for shoplifting a steak from the meat counter at the Kroger on New Circle Road. He shoved it down the front of his blue jeans. But now there's been controversy in recent years over whether he really needed the steak that bad or he just wanted to get some fucking publicity because they had a big show coming up.
That's what Tim Tyler told me, former commentator for ICW, that it was a publicity move, although it doesn't seem like the best publicity to get this wrestler trying to steal a steak.
Well, and at least they didn't call the fucking police dogs on him like they did in Nashville at the Waffle House, because if he had the steak shoved down the front of his fucking crotch, he might not have been a Macho Man when the dogs got finished with him. But he didn't put the dogs over, and that's a Dutch Mantell story, by the way, folks. Buy all of Dutch Mantell's books. I don't know which one it's in, but the story of Randy Macho Man Savage, the recently married cowboy, the squad of Nashville Metro police officers, and the police dog that Randy Savage had a conflict with one night at the Waffle House. It's in one of Dutch's books. But anyway, you don't have to steal steak, folks. You don't have to take that big old steak and shove it down the front of your pants where when it comes out, it tastes seasoned, even if you haven't salt and peppered it yet. No, folks, you can get Omaha steaks, the professional stuff, packaged and sealed and flash frozen and vacuum packed and delivered right to your door. Folks, it's grilling season of the summer, and they're offering a steakhouse grilling package from Omaha Steaks with a limited time offer just for my listeners. Go to omahasteaks.com, enter the code JCE into the search bar, and this week, Omaha Steaks adds 4 burgers and 4 gourmet jumbo franks for free with every summer grill out package order. Whether you're going for the Omaha Steaks bacon wrap filet mignon, the pork chops, the chicken, the kielbasa, more of it. Maybe it's a good thing we didn't transition from where we were earlier to this spot now. Plus, it's delivered to your door. No contact. It's in dry ice. It's frozen. Boom. You grill it. You get the goodness all over your face and in your mouth without having any human contact, folks. omahasteaks.com. Type JCE into the search bar to shop the summer grill packs today and get 4 jumbo franks, 4 Omaha steak burgers free to complete your steakhouse experience when you order the grand summer grill out package. And I haven't seen you lately in person, Brian, but I'm assuming all of the Omaha steak products that you've been sticking down your fucking neck these days, you probably weigh about 260.
Well, the Omaha steaks, I may get the 300 soon.
Well, now don't say that. Fuck, now you're trying to tell people that Omaha steaks are unhealthy.
No, I'm saying it's good. I want to eat everything they send to the house.
Yeah, but they ain't going to make you 300 pounds.
Well, if you don't share.
You don't, wait a minute. You eat these entire, they send you enough in one of these summer grill out packages for the family. Are you saying you get the summer grill out package and you eat it yourself?
Yeah, let my family get their own sponsors.
Well,
I'm not sharing my filet mignon.
I thought your wife had a few sponsors. I wasn't.
Oh, that's awful.
I wasn't sure I digress, but no, honestly, folks, I'm just kidding. I'm telling a lie. Brian came to me in a moment of weakness last week on the phone. He said, I tell you, Jim, I don't know what to do. My wife's cut me down to 3 times a week. I said, that's okay, Brian. I know 3 guys she cut out entirely. OmahaSteaks.com. Yes. / type J. It's not a slash.
Don't slash. This one
don't
you
slash
type in the
me.
search bar. Yes.
OmahaSteaks.com. Type JCE in the search bar. Search for the search bar. Stop at the bar. Have a drink. Then search for the bar. You won't be able to find it because you're drunk, but type JCE in the search bar. That's what I'd do.
All right.
I mentioned previously, by the way, I'm 199 pounds. By tomorrow, I'm going to be 205 because I promised myself for watching both of these shows, bacon double cheeseburgers tonight with hash brown patties in the deep fryer.
So maybe you should be reviewing 205 live instead of these shows.
No, well, God, no, don't bring up any more shows. Anyway, let me see. I'm got lots of notes here.
What are we starting with?
We're starting. Well, NXT was on Wednesday.
Correct.
And AEW was on. So we're going to start with Wednesday. Wednesday usually becomes before Thursday, right? So that's what we're going to do. Wednesday night, August 26th, NXT Championship Wrestling on USA Network. They opened with the promo with poor Karrion Kross and Scarlett. I feel so bad for this fucking guy. I don't know what to do. He goes through all of that, wins that fucking match with a separated shoulder and can't defend the title and has to immediately turn it over. As we talked about on the last program, turn it back over when they just went through hell with gasoline britches on to eliminate this whole thing down to where he won it from the previous guy that gave it up because he was going to go to the main roster to become a female tennis player. This was a good promo. The guy he's intense. He looks intense. He's got bass in his voice. He looks like a grown man. It was written verbiage, but he did it well. And it almost sounds like something that guy with all of this production around him and Scarlett and the whole 9 yards would say. He explained the injury and relinquished the belt there in the ring. They should have B-rolled when he was talking about it. They have the footage because he's in a sling and he's in a suit. And everybody thinks wrestling's all bullshit anyway. They've got the video of that giant knot on his shoulder from that match last week that everybody in the world except you, Brian Last, saw. I would have B-rolled that just for a second when he was talking about just for people to see, yeah, this was fucking real. This guy got his shoulder knocked out of the socket. But apart from that, I feel bad for the guy because especially with the dearth of really quality, good-looking, grown adult men talent that we've got, and this guy's going to – have we heard how long he might be out or have they even released that yet?
I haven't heard anything. That's why I was asking you the other day, how long is someone typically out with an injury like this?
Well, see, that's without me not having a medical degree and having examined him, people can fucking come back in 4 weeks, 4 months, 4 fucking years. It just depends. That's long, but you know what I'm saying? It depends on how bad, what part, what needs to be done, surgery or no. I've known some guys that tore their pecs and had surgery and were gone for months and months. And I've known some guys tore their pec and they never took a day off. It just, it depends. But anyway, I feel bad for the guy. I'm sure they'll use him when he gets back. He looks like he's an athlete. He's used to training and rehab and everything, physical rehab. That every time in the 90s, every time somebody get hurt, Vince would always, when we're doing the writing meetings, he'd say, well, let's explain to the fans that they're in rehab. And I'd say, no, Vince, let's not. Let's explain to the fans they're undergoing physical rehabilitation. And then he realized what he'd say. Oh, I see what you mean there, pal. Rehab means different things, and it was a little too close to the bone in the wrestling business at that time. But I hope he comes back and does well, but that's disappointing. And by the way, I did like seeing a nice dark arena with no fucking virtual fans and seizure-inducing light shows after watching the Thunderdome. It was nice just to see the talent standing in the ring. But it was short, brief, and to the point. What's he going to fucking say, right? I mean, any thoughts on your part? It was what it was.
It was what it was. It was a good promo for what it was. I think this guy is a star. I'm not crazy about the overly theatrical aspects of the introduction.
You've mentioned that.
And Scarlett could be a bit much, although she could be a bit much. But
she could be a bit much, although she could be a bit much.
But he's really good. And the match with Keith Lee wasn't what we had hoped it would be. Obviously, the injury played into that. He's a good promo. He has a great look. He looks like a scary adult, which is a refreshing thing to see in a professional wrestler. I hope he comes back. I hope he gets healthy. And I think that if he comes back and he's healthy, he's going to be on the main roster pretty quick, because I can't see Vince not wanting to get this guy up there to ruin him.
He needs to be ruined quickly. Oh my gosh. After seeing Vince on that Raw clip, I'm worried about the man. Anyway, the next match was for the NXT tag team titles. So the same company has 3 sets of tag team champions. And this was the team of Fan Dancer taking on the 2 guys from Imperium that aren't Walter. And I got to be honest with you. They started the match and they went to a break. Then they came back and I had kind of zoned out, and then I realized they'd gone to another break. It went through 2 breaks and came back, and I had zoned out and forgot to watch this fucking thing, which is basically because, I mean, Tyler Breeze and Fandango, the team of Fan Dancer, have just poisoned themselves to me with those male stripper entrances they were doing. They didn't do it here, but I'm just looking and seeing the goddamn, better in shape rock and roll RPMs, Mike Davis and Tommy Lane. But the finish, they gave a horrible tag to one member of Fan Dancer who made a brief comeback and then turned around and tagged the other guy back in. I think it was Fandango that got tagged back in, and he did a double leg drop off the top rope. He didn't land on the same guy with both legs. He landed on both guys with one leg each, barely, and then pinned one of them 1, 2, 3. So didn't Imperium just won the fucking belts here not long ago, and now they've switched them to... Are these the job guy underneath middle card tag team belts? Is this what we're being led to believe?
They're the NXT tag belts. And
the Fan Dancer and the 2 guys from Imperium not named Walter are battling over the NXT tag team title while Fish and O'Reilly are still there. And other people that we have seen. Anybody but these 2 teams? Is that where it's come to?
Well,
God damn it.
I tuned out when I saw it was Breezango, just because they've been treated like jerk-offs. And somewhere, maybe it was after the second commercial break or after the first commercial break, I looked up and I was like, this match is actually kind of getting good. And then it went to a commercial break. I was like, there goes the momentum. I actually thought it was a pretty good match. I question putting your belts on a team that's been treated like, as I said, jerk-offs on your show for the entire time we've been watching it. But with that said, taking that into the equation, I thought it was a pretty good match. I enjoyed the match more than anything else I've seen these 2 guys do there. And as far as the 2 guys not named Walter...
Well, that's like saying that fucking last bout of gout that I had wasn't as bad as the first 2. Go ahead.
And the 2 guys that are not Walter, as you called them, there's also another guy that's not Walter, that's an Imperium.
Well, where was he? Where was he when they needed him?
Other than the fact they were tag team champions, they didn't do anything with those guys. Like, at least Fish and O'Reilly were involved in the main event programs because of their alignment with Adam Cole. The tag belts, typically across WWE, the tag team belts, even when they had great tag teams like FTR there, were always treated like a throwaway title, at least, the last generation.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm saying, this, if I'd have cared to fucking watch closely, this might have been a good match mechanically, but since it's two fucking teams and who gives a shit, because what else have they done? Moving on. Damian Priest got confronted by Timothy Thatcher in the parking lot, and that was what it was. And then I think, honestly, maybe the best thing on the show, because it woke everybody up, Jake Atlas versus Tommaso Ciampa. And Ciampa's back. Did we ever figure out where he'd gone, why he hadn't been on television?
Creative had nothing for him.
The other people that they can put on this fucking program, and they didn't have anything, seriously. This is not just...
That's the only explanation I was given.
Well, anyway, I felt like somebody hit me in the head with a hammer because I got to see a star. Tommaso picked the intensity of the show up. He mauled Jake Atlas. He DDT'd him 1, 2, 3. It was a perfect return, especially since he's been pressed into action to compete for the title next week when they name another new champion. And then he took the guy to the floor and kicked the shit out of him. And the referees are trying to... Did you notice? This is what Dexter Lumis ought to be. There was Tommaso Ciampa. He's a fucking psycho. He's the serial killer. He had fucking aggression and intensity, and he fucking was chaotic, and he's ripping the guy to shreds. And he's got a fucking expression on his face like, the porch light may be on, but nobody's fucking home. This is a dangerous guy. This is a fucking nutcase. Dexter Lumis is just fucking boring, and his boots are full of pudding. So anyway, then, go ahead.
Did you see the other day on Twitter, Dexter Lumis changed his profile photo to be the Travis Heckel artwork from the video we did of you visiting him in a hospital room after he...
No!
Yeah.
No!
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dexter. I appreciate it. I'm just trying to help. But anyway, but here is where we can compare and contrast. Is it odd that there were 2 weeks in a row, one on AEW and then the next week on NXT, there's a full stretcher job? So we can compare and contrast. The stretcher came out way too quick. They strapped Jake Atlas down wrongly, but in record time on the stretcher, and we're preparing to wheel him out when Tommaso Ciampa jumps on him and DDTs him off the fucking stretcher. The same thing that they did, basically the same thing they did last week with Cody and Brody Lee, right? Here is where... If you could just take, like I told Batista that time, I said, if I could just transplant my brain in your body for a year, we could both retire. NXT had the much better in-ring performance. Tommaso Ciampa, a much better fucking psycho. He's a heel, but he's the heel that people kind of like because he's fucking nuts. Much better than Brody Lee, regardless. Not like a fucking earwig in your goddamn brain wouldn't be better than Brody Lee, but much better than Brody Lee. But the stretcher job in AEW was worlds better than this because it was real and it was well done. They had a legitimate doctor, Dr. Sampson. They took the time to stop everything down. It didn't just happen immediately like they're running a goddamn race. He wasn't bleeding out. If a guy's been beat up and possibly has a spinal injury or something like that, you don't rush it. You pick him up gently. You take the vitals. You do the whole 9 yards. Oh, they tried to rush him like he was bleeding out, and it was every second counted. Point is, AEW, real stretcher job, real doctor, done the real way, and the whole thing was a waste because the fucking heel that they did it for couldn't get heat in a goddamn microwave with a blowtorch. NXT, better in-ring performance because even though the Cody was in the Brody Lee match, the stretcher angle and everything was done primarily for Brody, and Cody was the fucking corpse. So Tommaso Ciampa benefited more from the stretcher job than Brody Lee did, because it's impossible to get him over with a hot air balloon. And there you go. So if we could have just had the AEW stretcher job with the NXT match, that would have been perfect. What do you think?
I thought this was really good. A great way to bring him back with some impact. Jake Atlas did a great job of getting his ass kicked. Like, he sold everything really, really well.
I don't know if he had a lot of choice in a couple of those things, whether he sold it or not, but go ahead.
And now I'm really curious where they're going to go with Ciampa. They did a good job of bringing someone who had been a regular there for a long time back after a few weeks off TV, and now I'm curious what they're going to do with him next.
Where they're going to Ciampa is to immediately put him in this goddamn garbage match they're going to have next week, but never mind. We'll get to that in a second. Mia Yim versus Shotzi Blackheart. I invoked my green hair and tank rule. It's just like teleportation. If I'm running late, I get to fast forward. Now go ahead and browbeat me incessantly like you do every time I fast forward a girl's match. And I like Mia Yim, but I'm not putting up with the girl with the fucking tank. I was afraid she'd roll over Robert Stone again.
It's not that I do it for every women's match. I'm not a big fan of Schlitzy Blitzy or whatever her name is. But if it wasn't here, I'm not trying to play spoiler. I thought it was here. It may have been later in the show. Because I lost it laughing. It's like, this can't happen again. She ran over Robert Stone again.
That's why I missed it, because I fast forwarded. I was afraid it would happen.
Robert Stone got run over again. And it was like a tight shot on him from the chest up, and all of a sudden he goes down, and there she is in that slow-moving tank yelling at him. I must admit, it's so ridiculous I started laughing. I never thought a third time he would get run over by this tank.
And the thing, it moves so slow, it's like being run over by a fucking 90-year-old man in a fucking hover-round. How can you not escape that? It's like the show. What the show we just watched, was that on SummerSlam? Oh yeah, when poor old Dominic Mysterio's mother was on the stage 100 feet away, and the heels turned and gave her a mean look, and that was supposed to be the goddamn moment of, oh my God, they're going to attack his mother, who's 100 feet away, and her feet are nailed to the stage. She can't move. There's no jeopardy if people obviously can't get to you unless you let them. Nevertheless. Anyway, William Regal announced what to do with the NXT title, and I got a few ideas for him. Next week, we are going to have to undergo, and by the way, next week may be triple bacon cheeseburger night. On Tuesday, by the way, next week, a four-way 60-minute Iron Man match. Adam Cole versus Tommaso Ciampa versus Finn Balor versus Johnny Sameface for the NXT title that has just been vacated after it was filled when it was vacated 6 weeks ago. What the fuck? Cole versus Ciampa. Cole versus Balor. Balor versus Ciampa. I could go on with those three names in different combinations. Take Johnny Sameface with his gray-haired wife and put him over in a fucking little cruiserweight match somewhere, and have these fucking two of the three of these stars, Adam Cole, Tommaso Ciampa, Finn Balor, have a goddamn match to determine the new champion. Now we've got to watch not a three-way, but a four-way, but we have to watch it for a fucking hour? You can't make one of these matches make sense in 20 minutes, or for 20 minutes, much less an hour. And besides that, they are narrow casting to the most diehard, hardcore, devoted fan who not only likes these multiple man matches, but will sit and watch this for an hour. here's what we found out a number of times. We found it out in 96 with Michaels and Brett, especially in Los Angeles, which was the absolute worst place to have that match. These people have the attention span of a fucking flea out there. If they don't know the match is going an hour and the guys have a classic match, it's a big deal. Flair Steamboat, whatever the fuck. But if they know already this match is going to go an hour, then it's very hard to get them to give a flying fuck unless they make it to the last 5 minutes, because then somebody's going to win. For the first, when they know nobody is going to actually win for an hour, that's tough. And a 4-way on top of that, and with Johnny Sameface in it. What the fuck are they trying to do to us, Brian?
I don't know. I like most of those guys in the match. I'm not a big Gargano fan, but I'm not a big fan of Iron Man matches in general. I'm not a fan of multi-man matches. Hopefully it's good. I'm hopeful, considering it's Cole and Ciampa and Balor and even Gargano. I'm hopeful it'll be good. I'm hoping it should be good. I don't know if I'm hopeful.
Yeah,
I'm hoping it'll be good.
Well, we'll see. That's next week. Oh, and by the way, we should mention, I guess, this coming week on the Jim Cornette Experiences, it comes out, what, Friday, September 3rd? 4th? We will do the Tuesday night NXT show and the Wednesday night AEW show. Because that's AEW's on Wednesday this week, right?
As of now, yes.
Yeah, as of now. And we'll also try to find something to do to talk about good wrestling to kind of balance that out. And also, then, go ahead. I was just going to say, well, what you keep telling me to go ahead? And next week's Drive Thru on Tuesday is going to be all out from Saturday. Now I'm done.
That's what I was going to say.
Well, see there. You told me to go ahead and do it, so I did it. Anyway, there's going to be a lot of cheeseburgers coming up. All right, moving along on NXT. Cruiserweight title, Swerve Scott versus Santos Escobar. They started the match and immediately went to the fucking break. And so I zoned out on this. It came back, but I was, okay, I was watching it. Then they went through another break. And at that point, I just fast forwarded to see who won so I could see what was next, because they didn't get me interested whatsoever in this by breaking it up constantly. But when I saw the finish, I'm glad that I didn't watch the rest of the match, because I'd have been pissed. Because Escobar, who's leader of the Lucha group, to restore dignity to Lucha Libre, takes a bump on the floor, gets a Lucha mask, puts it on, and it's fairly obviously gimmicked because there's a unicorn horn on the middle of it underneath the mask, and he specifically fucks with it to call attention to it. And when Swerve leans through the ropes to pull him back in the ring, Escobar headbutts him with the fucking mask on, and Swerve drops like he's been shot with a fucking bazooka, and he takes the fucking mask off and rolls in and covers him 1, 2, 3. The announcers not only didn't call the headbutt as loaded, and Wade Barrett, by the way, who apparently the NWA has lost the bad news. Wade Barrett's the announcer on this episode, along with Beth Phoenix and one of the Michael Cole descendants. And he said, well, I've seen a headbutt put an end to it before. They completely missed the whole concept, which tells me that somebody that produced this match didn't bother to tell the announcers, by the way, he's going to put the fucking mask on. The mask is loaded. They actually could have done this better if he had put the mask on and then loaded it. So you saw him put the gimmick up through the eye hole into the fucking, and maybe the announcers would have picked up on it. But this was a shocking lack of attention to a crucial detail that you would not expect normally from the WWE, where they're overproduced and over fucking prepared and manipulated. So yeah, I mean, a loaded headbutt that you didn't see the gimmick in it, but if you knew what they were going for and you could look for it and see it, but the announcers didn't bother to call it to reinforce it. What the fuck was this all about?
I completely zoned out of this match.
Okay.
I paid no
So you didn't even see the headbutt.
I probably did, and it just didn't register. I know they're trying to do something with Santos Escobar, but he hasn't really interested me much. Hold on. I'm choking. Hold on.
You'll choke on those words.
I know they're trying to do something with Santos Escobar, but he hasn't really interested me much, and Swerve Scott hasn't either. Sure, it was fine for what it was, but I did not. I just didn't care.
I'm interested in Escobar because he looks like something, and he looks like he knows what he's doing. He's got some experience, but the people that he interacts with are where I fucking lose interest. Anyway, moving along swiftly because we got more stuff coming up. Kyle O'Reilly versus Drake Maverick. And Drake Maverick was introduced at 140 pounds. Is this AEW? I like the guy, Rockstar Spud. I like the guy. I've met him. I've talked to him several times. He trained here at Ohio Valley Wrestling after I was gone, but he can work. But not only is Kyle O'Reilly a top heel, this is ridiculous. I'm sorry, I've got to be, consistent. Drake Maverick's a good interview. They've had him do general manager stuff, whatever. He's 140 fucking pounds. But it's like NXT has a well-trained, better-looking, more in shape and athletic version of all of the outlaw guys in AEW. Have you noticed that? This guy, at least the little fucking dwarf freak on AEW looks like shit, too. He looks literally like just a little fucking pale anal suppository that you'd shove up somebody's ass. Drake Maverick's an athlete. He's well-trained. He can work. The other guy's just a self-trained fucking mud show fuck. But it's still ridiculous. There's got to be a size limit somewhere. Anyway, having said that, this shouldn't have been as competitive as it was, but Kyle O'Reilly tapped him out, and then the heels got some heat on him afterwards. And then Killian Dane hit and made a horrible sloppy save where he missed at least a couple of the strikes that he threw. And then Drake Maverick was back up at least to his knees and aware and conscious by the time the heels hit the floor. And then he stood up and thanked Killian Dane, and Killian Dane clotheslined Drake Maverick, the guy that he just came out and saved. Thoughts?
I'm really impressed with O'Reilly more and more every time I see him. I've liked him for years, but he gets better and better. Beautiful rolling knee bar.
Yes.
That he hooked up. Just beautiful.
Lovely.
Other than that, I don't care about Drake Maverick, and I didn't care about the match.
All right, the next match, a girls' match. Rhea Ripley and Io Shirai against Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. And naturally, because I knew that you would browbeat me endlessly, I watched this match because Rhea Ripley was in it. They start out, they have a brief tease with the big girls, Raquel and Rhea Ripley in there. Looks good. And then Io tags herself in to get Ripley out of the confrontation in a graceful way, and they go to break. Every time they even get a match that I might like to watch, they spend 5 minutes on the fucking entrances. They wrestle for 30 seconds and go to break. God damn. Do the entrances and then go to break and then come back and start the match. Or how about join it in the fucking ring? Stars need entrances, but they also need to fucking wrestle more than they need entrances. So join it in the ring if you're that tight and let them wrestle. I don't know. But anyway, Rhea Ripley has the size, has the look, has the babyface fire, the body language. Her shit looks good. I'm intrigued by her and Raquel Gonzalez because they're both the same size. Raquel even maybe a little bit bigger. And everything else in this is just girl wrestling. they stopped Rhea Ripley in kind of an awkward fucking way. I don't know what they were going for. They got some heat on her. And then Raquel Gonzalez didn't seem too bad. I think she's going to be able to carry this off. I did write, I couldn't believe they were getting heat on Rhea Ripley and giving a tag to Io Shirai unless they're going to beat Io Shirai, is what I wrote at that point. But that's what they gave the cold tag to Io Shirai, who made a sloppy comeback and did some acrobatics. But did you see, what was this? At one point, old Dakota Kai gets Io Shirai bent over in front of her, and then Dakota Kai just jumps up and forward flips over the top of Io Shirai and took a flat back bump on the other side of her, and Io Shirai just looked at her and fucking didn't know what to do. What the fuck was that? Did you see that?
I don't remember. It's been a while since I watched this match.
Oh, no. I will remember this until I will take this to my grave. Imagine Io Shirai is bent over, doubled over at the stomach, selling in front of Dakota Kai, and Dakota Kai grabs one of Io Shirai's arms and launches herself over Io Shirai's back and took a flat back bump on the other side. Riddle me that, Batman. Anyway, this was all over the place. Then finally, Io Shirai cold tags, just iceberg cold tags, Rhea Ripley, but the referee didn't see it. So they're not teaching blind tags properly in fucking the performance center these days. Then Mercedes Martinez runs out and jerks Rhea Ripley off the apron. She goes face first into the fucking steps. And then disappears. And while the heels are beating up Io Shirai, Rhea Ripley gets back up to the apron. And Rhea Ripley reaches in and tags herself in when Io Shirai sells over in front of her. And so there's two cold tags in a row. And then Raquel Gonzalez power bombs Rhea Ripley 1, 2, 3. Awful fucking finish. What the fuck are they thinking? You have Mercedes Martinez come out and jerk Rhea Ripley off the apron of the fucking ring. She smashes her face on the fucking ring steps. She ought to be pretty much unconscious. If Rhea Ripley then just dumped her back up on the apron and left, right? They're beating up Io Shirai. She never saw this happen. If suddenly she was able to come out from under both of these heels and Rhea's there just with her arm hanging on the fucking top rope and she's down on her knees and Io dives over and makes the tag with her last ounce of strength and fucking rolls out to sell. She doesn't know Rhea's hurt, and then the heels come and grab Rhea and jerk her in and hit her with something. Then the heat goes on Mercedes Martinez, and you have not given the people a final conclusion between Rhea Ripley and Raquel Gonzalez either. But mentally, perception-wise, when Rhea Ripley got jerked off face first into the steps, she got back up on the apron of the ring, and she had the presence of mind to reach over and tag Io while she was selling. And then she comes in and gets beat. So that means that she just got fucking beat. Flat by Raquel Gonzalez. I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to keep the heat on Mercedes and that whole thing and keep that going. And at the same time, not give Rhea a victory over the giant Raquel Gonzalez. But that didn't make sense. They just keep beating Rhea and not doing it in the right way. Your thoughts?
The booking of Rhea Ripley since WrestleMania has been atrocious. We've said it before. Ever since that match with Charlotte, it's like they don't know what to do with her. Or they only know how to fuck it up. I thought the match was okay. Obviously, I'm not even thinking about the bad booking or pinning Rhea. I like Dakota Kai. I think she's really good, as you are aware.
Yeah, she takes a wonderful flat back bump over the top of her opponents.
Beyond that, I don't have anything much to add to this review.
Well, then let's close up NXT. There it was. And that was the main event, by the way, folks. The TV main event.
You could tell it was unopposed this week.
Oh, both these shows were unopposed, but they both had a lot of opposition. A lot of opposition came from me. AEW was on Thursday night, August 27th. And they started right out with a gauntlet match between tag teams to determine who will face the champions on the gigantic pay-per-view All Out, which is this year a description of where most of the fans are, correct?
Correct. All Out.
All Out. And the first pairing in the gauntlet match was the Young Bucks versus Dustin Rhodes and QT Marshall. And Jericho on color, by the way. And I don't want to start out just slandering my old friend Chris. Remember how we were saying, God, his commentary is great. We love it. It's funny. Months ago, this is, he brings the fucking energy of the show up, blah, blah, blah. Is it my imagination, or has he changed to trying to, in a backhanded heel way, praise all the mud show fuckwits that he's having to interact with and try to get them over, and it's ruining him just being fucking funny and knocking all these dumb shits? Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah, he sounds like a company man, if that's what you mean, but he's also just screaming the entire time.
Well, that he's trying too hard, but also he's given the backhanded compliments. Well, I never dreamed they'd be as over as they are. Or, I've got to say that best friends are really great. Or, well, I know that Orange Cassidy proved something, but still, nevertheless, no. He was entertaining before because he'd take these fucking goofs, just like I do, and tell the truth about them. It's not his fault that they signed a bunch of mud show dipshits and that they're trying to use them on a national television program. Let Jericho be entertaining. Anyway, Young Bucks versus Dustin and QT, they started out actually wrestling. And they had a wrestling match, maybe as respect for Dustin being in the match. Dustin, he's in the best shape of his fucking career, but technically and logically, for the most part, this was a decent match. And I see now why I think the Young Bucks do the shit they do. And it goes back to what I've said before. They do the gymnastics and the goofy shit and the stuff you can't follow, and there's the smoke and mirrors and whole 9 yards and they're allowed to do it. When they weren't allowed to do that, they didn't get over. And then when they said, well, we're just going to disregard everything everybody tells us not to do and do what we want to do, they got over. And the reason why is because when they try to wrestle, you have to fucking scoff at it because it looks like kids dressed as the Rock and Roll Express doing wrestling moves, and it just devalues what the real talent does when the real men do it. So they do all this gymnastic bullshit, and for the people who don't like wrestling and like whatever the fuck this stuff is, they get over with them. But they should not have ever been allowed to do that shit to begin with. Sometimes people just have to be told, you can't get over as a wrestler. And you do not have a spot in the wrestling business the way it is supposed to be done. We are not going to change our business just so you two fucking middle-aged middle schoolers can get over. It's not, we'll find somebody else that can get over doing it the right way. That's why they didn't get over until they found a mark that allowed them to do whatever they wanted. First in Japan to an extent, and then in Ring of Honor, where Ring of Honor, because they were struggling, let them rape their entire company and leave it. And now this fucking Tony Khan's the fucking mark. So anyway, besides that, technically it was decent for the Young Bucks, but it was a babyface versus babyface match, so it accomplished little other than burying the losing team, which in this case is Dustin Rhodes and QT Marshall, who are both twice the size of each one of these idiots. When a babyface team beats a babyface team clean, it just indicates that the babyface team that got beat is not as good as the other one. So it didn't do anything for the Bucks. It just buried QT and Dustin. But it was the closest thing I've seen to the Bucks actually having a wrestling match all the way through. I mean, did I miss anything?
I mean, I'm sure maybe you've missed other matches they've had where they've.
I mean, in this match, did I miss anything?
No,
commenting on anything.
You know, I mean, all the matches kind of blended together because it was Gauntlet. I will just say, once again, the most ridiculous thing in wrestling is Matt Jackson doing power moves. And like, we joke about him being Road Warrior Buck. It's true. He sells nothing. He has unlimited power. He's just half the size of everyone else. It's so ridiculous. I'm not a fan of them or their style of wrestling. I'm really not.
The next team comes. Another babyface match. Although, they're babyfaces allegedly. I can't imagine they're popular. Apparently, they are. Once again, we've mentioned the balls in the step stool in Germany. But best friends. They're so lopsided with tag teams, and they're so fucked up on their babyface and heel fucking delineations that they can't even have a gauntlet match with 4 fucking tag teams. They've only got 1 heel team in it. So anyway, every week, to me, Trent's hair and body looks better, and fuck Taylor's hair and body looks worse. His muffin top is now Guinness Book of World Records size, like the whole bakery teamed up to fucking bake this muffin top on Taylor. But they could have used Chuck Taylor's fucking mother instead of Trent's, because he's already a fucking dipshit that hatchet head that nobody likes. Trent, you know, they didn't have to bury him any fucking deeper. Anyway, they didn't have Dustin and QT in there to keep it on track, so this got sloppier, made less sense, and included more gymnastics. At one point, Balding Buck and Trent fought on the apron for, I rewound it back and then got my watch with the second hand, 35 seconds. The partners were not doing anything. The corpse referee was right there staring at him, telling him to get back in the ring, and never even tried to start counting. He just stares at him. Then Road Warrior Buck made a fucking comeback on the other baby faces. So you have to put comeback in quotation marks when a baby face is making it on a baby face. If there's nobody to cheer against, there's nobody to cheer for. So it's just a mess. They all did more shit to each other. The simultaneous cold tags. Not just a cold tag, but simultaneous cold tags. At the same time, one to Balding Buck and one to fuck Taylor. So they came in and did some more sloppy shit. Did you see the one Taylor? It's allegedly a double team move on a tag. Trent gets behind Balding Buck, and Taylor gets in front of him, and Taylor puts his foot under Balding Buck's chin, and then took a flat back bump, fell straight on his back. Like that was an impact under Balding Buck's chin so that Trent could take him over backwards in a German suplex. It looked ridiculous. And this just got rottener and rottener as it went, and I wish they would either bury or cremate that fucking referee before he starts to smell. Because he already stinks, but he's going to decompose any time now. Out of nowhere, Adam Page came out as the Bucks were going for one of their finishes they've named after their Uncle Dave, and held Road Warrior Buck's foot so that one of the fucking friends could roll Balding Buck up. And the Bucks do a job for an underneath middle card preliminary fucking rotten babyface tag team, because Adam Page, their fellow member of the Elite, came out and held their foot. And there's been issues between Page and the rest of the Elite for some time, right? But was there some instigation for him doing this particular thing at this particular time that I missed? And why are we to assume that this is a cataclysmic occurrence? After months and months of building, is Page going to turn on Olivier? Is Page going to switch heel? Is Page going to leave the Elite? Are they going to kick him out? He comes out and holds Road Warrior Buck's foot. What the fuck is going on here? Tell me, Brian Last.
Well, first let me say, bad match. I really didn't like it. Not a fan of Best Friends at all. I mean, look, they've established that FTR gets along with Adam Page. They drink beers together. And they really did. I mean, the holding
he
the
just
foot,
appeared. There was no interaction beforehand.
He just ran out of nowhere. They had a wide shot they eventually showed where he just all of a sudden ran into camera frame and held his leg. Not exactly sure why. Also, if you're going to cost him the match, he held his leg, prevented him from doing the double team move, the Meltzer driver, but the other guy had already been rolled up. Like, he prevented him from jumping in, not to prevent the pin from happening, but preventing him from participating in the move that would have led to a potential pin. Made no sense.
Well, there'll be more between these folks later on. But
and then they did some kind of makeup on him, on his eyes. I don't know if you noticed, there was like a red ring around his eyes.
I didn't notice this.
Yeah, I mean, they even said it on commentary. It was something different with his eyes. Yeah, all of a sudden it looked like they must have the makeup person do a red ring around his eyes, because obviously he's so drunk that he did this. And they yelled at him, and he was just comatose. He just stood there and took it and then slinkered off.
Anyway, finally out comes FTR. And obviously, I see where they went with that finish, because obviously they'd be nuts to give us FTR versus the Young Bucks on free TV. But they couldn't come up with a quality tag team to beat the Young Bucks and then lose to FTR, and it had to be the fucking Best Friends.
Who? Who's the quality team they could have done it with?
Well, that's what I'm saying. They couldn't come up with one. And that's their fault. They've had a year to sign all these people. Anyway, FTR come out, and they start the match in the break. We had to see every single gruesome minute of these first two stinkers with the stench of grisly death on them. FTR gets in the goddamn ring. They go to break. They come back did you see at one point where the referee, trying to uphold the rules, said the referee told one of the guys that Dax wasn't the legal guy, and then counted anyway. He's not legal, and then dropped down and counted. But everything that FTR does, body language, facials, reactions, aggression, precision, the way they move around, they're so far ahead of the rest of these fucking goofs. It's not even close. But they get minutes to show what they can do with these two fucking mooches. After we've had to watch 20 minutes of kids playing with each other, we get less than 5 minutes of fucking FTR. And the announcers, did you hear them actually comment on, well, we know that FTR got put in their contracts that their matches have to have rules. Is that the most insane sounding thing that could ever be said by an announcer? These athletes in this particular sport are the ones in the company that specifically got put in their contract that the matches have to be contested under rules. You fucking mark morons. Anyway, Dax got the tap out on Fuck Taylor, and it was flatter than 4 o'clock. So now they're bringing FTR down to their fucking level instead of the other way around. And then they followed that up, just real briefly before I give you a chance to react, they followed it up with 30-second Darby Allin video with Tax in his back, climbing up on top of a 100-foot tall bridge and jumping off of it into the water. I just want to go on record as saying every time I see Darby Allin, I like him less and less. At first, I saw a fucking unique kind of baby face with a different style. And even though he's painfully small, if he was the only small guy around and you put attention on him and he can fight and overcome, blah, blah, blah. The more I see him do this thumbtack shit and this skateboard shit and jumping off of shit, I think he's a goddamn complete fucking idiot. What in the world would possess you if Tony Khan was say, I'm going to put you in a pay-per-view main event and I'm going to pay you $10 or $25 or $50,000, but you got to fucking splash the goddamn guy off the top of the bridge, that may be one thing. But to just go up and jump off the top of a fucking bridge for a 30-second VTR on television, you, my friend, are a goddamn idiot. And what's more, the guy that signed him to a contract to pay him money to perform as a professional wrestler and is sitting watching him do all this stupid skateboard shit and jumping off of shit, taking a chance on getting hurt. I assume he'd still collect his fucking guarantee. Not if I was the fucking boss. You dumb son of a bitch. You fucking get hurt and can't perform in any way for me doing anything other than working wrestling in my ring. You're on your fucking own. I'm going to fire your ass while you're in the hospital hooked up to an oxygen tent because you're a fucking idiot. Goddamn Jerry Jarrett didn't speak to Jerry Lawler for fucking weeks when he broke his leg playing fucking football that he wasn't supposed to be playing because he was the main event star in the territory. This little fucking goof probably making $150,000 a year, and all he wants to do is try to do stupid shit for free to hurt himself that don't have anything to do with wrestling. There's my goddamn fucking commentary on that. Quote, comment on any of this shit.
I don't have too much to add other than FTR stand out from everyone else because they're so good. Tully's now with them. They have matching jackets. I guess it's official that Tully's their manager. It was never explicitly said. That's all I have to say about all that.
What about old Darby jumping off the bridge?
I'm not as offended by that as you are.
It's stupid.
Yeah, it's stupid.
You know what could be in that fucking water?
Is that what your concern is? What's in the water?
What? No, I'm talking about fucking sharp shit. Shit sticking up. Shit you could land and impale yourself on. Besides that, you're still jumping 80 feet into water. You knock yourself out and drown. What? Boy, that'd be a real hoot. Hey, Tony, we took the camera out to shoot Darby jumping off that fucking bridge. Well, when he smacked and hit the water, it knocked him out and he floated downstream, and it's been 3 days. We ain't found him yet. That'd been a fucking hilarious thing to have happen. Dumb shits.
Are you bothered by the fact that AEW has this guy who has the potential to be one of the top guys there based on his uniqueness, that they have him, or they allow him to do this stupid stuff and send it in on video? Or are you bothered that he does it, that he chooses to do this with his life?
Both that he's doing it for real. And I mean, if you're going to do it, at least shoot video of it. I always said, hey, if I was ever going to get fucking badly injured, I wanted fucking video. I'm glad there's video of the scaffold match thing, but I also got paid $10,000 for that in 1986. Did anybody pay dipshit $10,000 to jump off that fucking bridge, which was a lot more fucking dangerous? He's an idiot. If you're taking risks for the wrestling business, your profession, and you're getting paid for it, and you're taking bigger risks on the bigger shows because you get a bigger check, I'm fine with that. If you're just going out like a fucking jack-off on ridiculousness and doing stupid shit like these demented skateboard fucks do, and sticking thumbtacks in yourself and jumping off of shit because you're fucking warped outlook on life and you're depressed or you want to feel alive or whatever these fucking goddamn, they ought to all call better help. This whole generation. They ought to have their goddamn heads examined. You know what you'd find? Nothing. That they can all piss up a rope if we're going to do all that shit for absolutely no money and take a chance on paralyzing yourself. Fuck you. I'll be over here eating a cheeseburger and getting paid for it. Anyway, Lance Archer was up next. And they actually did something right. They actually did something right here. Old Sean Maluta was the opponent. Lance Archer killed him. Not only killed him, but killed him convincingly. It's the best he's looked. This is how you get over. And Cody didn't do a stretcher job for this guy. He did it for fucking boring Brody. If he was going to do one, and what they did could have gotten Lance Archer over. And they couldn't do it for Lance Archer. They got to do it for the black hole of charisma. And then Jake and Lance cut the promo in the ring, and it's there's another of these fucking goofy casino battle royals coming up, but at least they're putting the focus on Lance, and he's going to beat 20 other guys. I wish they would ask Jake to maybe dress like a fucking star and not like a guy who just walked away from a state home. But anyway, this was okay when the music interrupted. Here comes Taz with Ricky Starks and Brian Cage. Remember where I said, well, why aren't there any fucking heels wrestling these baby faces? It's because the heels are all mad at each other too. Now the heels came out and confronted the heels. This is the worst booking. This makes Shit Stain look like fucking Eddie Graham or Leo Garibaldi, for fuck's sake. Toots Mondt even. The heels are mad at the heels. The baby faces are mad at the baby faces. The promo went to shit. And everybody was just talking over each other without saying anything. And then here comes Darby Allin with music and skateboard. Darby Allin is so pissed off at Ricky Starks for all the things he's done to him and said about him and making mockery of him, dressing up like him, that instead of just coming out of the fucking locker room and tackling him, he rides his little skateboard all the way down to ringside and then jumps in and tackles Ricky Starks and beats the bejesus out of him and fights him all the way back down the fucking entranceway while Starks' friends stand there and watch and make no move. Do nothing. And when they fight off, then Lance and fucking Brian Cage jaw-jack with each other and nothing happens. And then it's over. What the fuck is going on here?
I don't know. And also, Jake seemed to have a problem letting Taz get a word in.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They all talked over the top of each other and nobody said anything.
Yeah.
And their poor Taz is in the ring with fucking 5 guys that are 6'5". Well, not Starks, but you know what I'm saying.
Not Cage either.
Well, not Cage. Well, he's 6 feet wide, but it just,
Well, they're building up their Casino Royale. Is that what it is? The Battle Royal? Is it the
I
casino?
guess. Yeah.
They're building that up, so they're showing that, there's dissension between the heel ranks.
Oh, fuck it. No, they just don't know any better. Here's the goddamn
they don't know.
thing,
They clearly
guys.
don't know any better. I'm giving you the reasoning for why they did this, but it's not right.
Well, here's the goddamn deal. The heels and the babyface are supposed to be mad at each other. The heels usually are supposed to like each other, but they will stab each other in the back if it's fortuitous for them. And the babyfaces are supposed to stand up for each other no matter what. And if you don't have clearly defined heels and babyfaces, so where the fans can tell as soon as they look at them which one they are, and you don't have reasons for them to fight with each other that the people can believe, then what you have is fucking caca. Tony, you got caca. Your heels and your baby faces are all over the fucking page and nobody gives a shit. All right.
With that said, I gotta say, I did get excited as a fan when Taz and his team came out there. I really like Taz with Ricky Starks and Brian Cage. I wish they were doing something different with them, doing something better with them. But Taz is fantastic on the mic. Cage obviously has a great look. And he could do a lot in the ring.
Starks was brilliant with that promo and shit last week or whatever.
He's impressing me more and more, just his presence. Just watching him during that promo, just his reactions to everything. He's in the moment. He's really good, too.
Imagine if they had any direction. Anyway, by the way, the Thunder Rosa package. Talking about the matchup coming with Shida, NWA champion versus AEW champion. Serious package, made it seem important, had voiceovers from the NWA president, made it seem like a big deal, interpromotional conflict, good job, nobody's fucking jacking off with their thumb in their ass, winking at us. They do it for fucking girls. They can't do it for the fucking guys, where you could actually really draw some serious fucking money.
It was a tremendous package. It was really well done, yeah.
And I'm a fan of Thunder Rosa. Met her when I was at the NWA taping. And she's serious too, and it was a great package. Having said that, do the shit with the guys you're going to draw some money on. Make the guys as serious as you make the fucking visiting girl from another promotion. Anyway, we're at the contract signing between MJF and Stone Cold Cosplay for the pay-per-view AEW Championship match. MJF comes out in the walker and the neck brace from the way he was mistreated last week. And boy, he was actually professionally mistreated last week. Moxley can't come to the fucking ring for a contract signing from the locker room. So I fast forwarded the 5-minute entrance of this delusional, indulgent fuck. MJF blistered Moxley verbally through the whole thing, got more serious at the end, started selling the pay-per-view after the, haha lines, got real serious with saying that Moxley idolized Sandman, New Jack, and Zandig. That's the only time Zandig's name will ever be mentioned on an actual television program. And he, hot garbage. Did you catch MJF said he idolized Buddy Rogers, Tully Blanchard, and Ernie Ladd? One of these things is not like the other. Ernie was a great talent, but I don't know if we could all call him a great wrestling technician, which is the point that was being made there. But and then he tries to goad Moxley to sign in the contract to ban the DDT. I'm sorry, it was long. This was long. This was a little long. It was well done, but it was long. But by the time Moxley starts talking, and now it's okay to say dickwad on television, apparently. But he tried to be the psycho and intimidating, and he's not psychotic, and he's not intimidating. And, like we said, the delivery is okay if it was anybody you could believe in that position, but it's just this fucking buggy whipped arm, fucking normal looking fuck. And he signed the contract and added page 17, which, of course, is next week a match between him and the lawyer, Mark Sterling. And if whatever here's the goddamn deal. If MJF had said everything that he said, and then Moxley had said everything he said, and then Moxley had signed the fucking contract, right? And then the lawyer and MJF had started laughing and everything because you're an idiot, because you've just fucking signed away your best fucking hold or whatever, and Moxley had already said, I don't need it. If then Moxley had put the fucking lawyer through the fucking table like everybody was waiting for, there was going to be some physicality somewhere, which is why they made a joke out of there's not going to be any physicality, which is another way of saying there's going to be some physicality, but you're not going to expect it. And then they didn't do any physicality, except that the fucking babyface made the heel and the heel's lawyer look like complete fucking idiots. That's the kind of shit you used to do to me, the manager, not the fucking guy that needs all the heat going into the fucking title match. They should have had fucking Moxley get hot at that fucking line about his fucking tell your hot wife I'm single or whatever, and let him grab the goddamn lawyer and put the lawyer through the fucking table, and then have MJF stand up off that walker and rip that fucking neck brace off and be fucking 100% fine, and drop goddamn Moxley on his head with his own fucking move and leave him laying in the middle of the ring and saying, Saturday night, you can't use it, but I can. Now you got some heat going into the match. And then Moxley can end up goddamn beating fucking MJF, possibly using his move behind the referee's back, or who gives a shit, I don't care. But unless MJF is going to pin Moxley 1, 2, 3 right in the middle of the fucking ring and win the belt on the pay-per-view, this was the stupidest thing I've ever fucking seen. Take all the heat off the fucking heel. The go home of the fucking pay-per-view. Or not the go home. There's one more. This was last week. So maybe the lawyer will beat Moxley. If somebody beats fucking Moxley or fucks him up some kind of way before this goddamn pay-per-view match, they might can save this thing. But all they've done is make fucking MJF, they dropped him on his head last week, and this week, I don't understand. I do not understand. Do you understand?
I don't know if I understand. I haven't been very happy with the way MJF's been used the last several weeks since they started this bullshit campaign, and he has his team and his lawyer. I know the lawyer is a wrestler, but he has not done it for me. He's too shticky. He's clearly not an attorney, and he's clearly
a wrestler that knows how to lawyer instead of a lawyer that knows how to wrestle.
Yeah, I'm not buying him at all. I thought MJF's promo and Moxley's promo were both excellent. Excellent. It made me want to see these guys wrestle. If they had stopped with, I signed the contract, I'll see you on the 5th. Even if there was no physicality at all, I would have been like, oh shit, I can't wait for this match. But then it became Raw. Then it became, you forgot to look at that last page, Mr. Lawyer. The last page that me, John Moxley, slipped into the contract. I'm going to wrestle you. To me, that took away what was, up to that point, a fantastic segment. I'm not crazy about, MJF with the walker and everything. It's a little too much.
But the point is, the point you're making, every time they do one of these things right, accidentally, and somehow get a performance out of everybody that gets the point across, they have to fuck it up at the end. They get almost to the finish line, and then, or they've got to take it too far, and they move the finish line another 50 yards down the road, and then you're tired of watching them run. They can't just get there and leave well enough alone, is what I'm saying.
We've both been critical of Moxley for different things and different reasons. MJF did a fantastic promo. I thought Moxley did a great promo, especially with, okay, I can't use my DDT. I'm going to have to be creative and come up with another way to get you. What did you think of Moxley's promo?
His promos are great. This one was very good too. I'm going to have to get creative. I'm going to have to come up with another way. I can't believe this fucking, balding, normal looking fuck sitting there going, well, I can choke your breath out of you and I can do all this and that. If it was his idol, Steve Austin, or, at least that's who we think his idol really is because he's cosplaying him, or some badass that's legitimate looking, the promos would be great. I just don't believe it coming from him. I think it sounds more like this outlaw garbage deathmatch hardcore bullshit of today where they all fucking look like shit, but they think because they've got real scars from the stupid shit that they've done for no money, that makes them tough. That just makes them stupid. You can cut anybody up, and if you sew them up and they come back, that doesn't make them tough. It makes them stupid for getting cut up for no money and no reason in the first place. Freak show bullshit. Anyway, they were right there. They were right there, and then they, like you said, they turned into ha-ha land, and it's just, fuck. Anybody get some goddamn heat. What about the 8-man tag team match? What the fuck? See if I've got this right. The Butcher and the Baker, we can't call them the Vic Tayback Express anymore because now they don't wear their white stuff because they're not in the butcher shop and the bakery anymore. So the Butcher and the Baker and the Lucha Brothers with Eddie Kingston, the guy that I'd like to see in the ring is the one out on the floor, against Griff Garrison, Sonny Kiss, Jelly Nutella, and poor old Brian Pillman Jr. It starts at 100 miles an hour. They go into an immediate 8-way. All the baby faces get bumped out on the floor, and then the heels do the dives and fire up the fans. So within the first 30 seconds of this match, it was completely off fucking chart and made no sense. But at the same time, the Lucha Brothers, even though they have a manager and they're partners with a heel team, have kind of been baby faces because people cheer for them because they do all that goofy shit that some people like. And then meanwhile, on the other side, you have the most unappealing, rotten-looking fucking baby, except for Brian Pillman. Look at the state of Jelly. Griff Garrison just looked like some skinny white fucking guy, and then there's Sonny Kiss. So who's going to cheer for this motley crew of baby faces? It's all fucked up. And now I'm actually seeing Sonny Kiss wrestle, by the way. Everybody, well, Sonny Kiss, when you see him wrestle, fucking hell. Awkward. Can't hit the ropes. That fucking sway back. The scoliosis. He looks goddamn fucking formed.
Oh, will you stop it?
And it's a gymnast trying to wrestle. He can do a cartwheel and 3 flips into a slap, but he can't hit the fucking ropes.
Can I say something?
Yes.
This match was on, and Suzanne came into the office. And
oh, don't you goddamn tell me you better have watched every single second of this fucking piece of shit.
I watched this match. What I was going to say And boy, the tide has turned. This is the way I reacted when you fast-forwarded past those really good matches with Bayley, Sasha Banks, and Asuka. But Suzanne was watching it, and whoever Sonny Kiss was in the ring with, Suzanne does not watch wrestling. She used to watch New Japan with me, but after Nakamura left, she lost her interest like I did. And she was looking at the TV because she knew I was reviewing this, and she said, and again, she knows nothing about what happens in wrestling. She goes, they now let women wrestle with men? And I said, no, that's a man. That's a man. She thought Sonny Kiss was a woman. She couldn't believe it even after I told her it was a man. She thought I was lying.
But she was right. They do have the intergender matches, which is equally as stupid.
And this is the way someone who doesn't like wrestling would react to the idea of intergender wrestling. I will also say, as a proud heterosexual man, Sonny Kiss has a fantastic ass.
What the fuck? Look here. Here's the goddamn deal. Well, besides, after the cartwheel and the 3 flips into the slap, Jelly got in, and the forearms, he pushes the forearm and then jerks it back. It's like he's doing some kind of weird reverse fucking, if you played this fucking video in reverse, it would actually look good or something. All the heels tagged in simultaneously and did some awkward shit, and they went to the break. And they come back, and the quote-unquote heels are getting quote-unquote heat on Jelly, and he's trying to sell. And so then you have 2 heels that are kind of popular to begin with, beating on a baby face trying to sell that just looks like a goddamn guy that they picked up at a homeless shelter. And then he tags Sonny Kiss, and Sonny Kiss tries to make a comeback. And JR calls Sonny Kiss her. Okay.
No, he didn't, did he?
Yes, he did, and here it comes. Look, you motherfuckers, I don't give a good goddamn whether somebody is straight, gay, bisexual, transsexual, or likes fucking goats and Dalmatians. But I'm going to tell you something right now. It's fucking stupid when, except for Brian Last's wife, everybody's seeing a fucking guy. An effeminate guy, a guy dressed up in part as a girl, but a fucking guy. And if you're a private citizen, you're allowed to call yourself, refer to yourself as whatever you want, and you're allowed to ask people to refer to you as whatever you'd like to be referred to. But if you're going to be a goddamn professional wrestler, especially one just on the underneath card that's never going to make a fucking difference in business or draw a goddamn dime anywhere, and you are making the lead announcer or asking the lead announcer, or the lead announcer even feels beholden to call you by a name that you are not and ruin his credibility. Jim Ross's credibility is what they bought. And for everybody except the demented little subgenre, subcult of people who enjoy this fucking wrestling parody shit they do, they're looking at a fucking guy, and Jim Ross is saying she and her. It's fucking ridiculous. It's fucking stupid. It's your announcer credibility instead of pandering or catering to one fucking apparently easily fucking hurt-feelinged fucking person on your roster. Until they fucking call a UFC fighter or an NFL football player, male athlete, her or she, don't do it in wrestling. Unless it's a her or a she. Have you ever heard a male athlete in the National Basketball Association, the National Football League, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, Bellator, any other combat sport, an obvious man, whether he wants to dress up or not, referred to as a woman in any of those sports? This is not personal preference, personal sexual orientation. This is making pro wrestling again look like a goddamn clown show. So fuck that. If you're in a professional wrestling match and you've got a dick, you're a guy and you're he or him. If you want to go all the way with it like Nyla Rose did, that's fine. Otherwise, stay fucking put where you are.
Well, we don't know if it was a request from Sonny Kiss for Jim Ross to say that.
Why would Jim Ross say that?
It may have been a slip. It could have been a
feel good.
It could have been a slip.
No, it couldn't.
You think Jim Ross was told to call Sonny Kiss her?
Either that or he's trying to be nice and make him feel good because he likes to be called her. They said on Twitter, he refers to himself as he or she, which is fucking ludicrous. That's like being a little bit pregnant. You need to pick one, stick with it. I feel the same way when Bruce Pritchard used to tell me WWF bullshit that I knew was bullshit, but he expected me to agree with it. I would tell him, look, as long as you know that I know you're working, I'll work with you, but don't expect me to say this shit and actually mean it because I know you're fucking full of bullshit. Anyway.
By the way, after I revealed to Suzanne that Sonny Kiss was in fact a man, and then had to reiterate it because she thought I was joking with her, I told her, I said, yeah, Jim got into a lot of heat. I didn't use the word heat, but I said Jim got into some problems like a year and a half ago, whatever, because he had never seen this person before and said, the transvestite they had in the ring, and everyone lost their mind. And she said, why? I said, well, transvestite's a slur now. And she didn't know about that. She was...
Yeah. That's because she actually is a normal human being that has a real life.
Yeah, she saw this and she was wondering what the fuck I was watching.
All right, anyway, like I said, go all the way with it like Nyla Rose did. Make the switch, or elsewise fucking stay put. You can't have your fucking Kate needeth too, you rascal you, oh the lady who. Did Lance Russell ever call Adrian Street she or her?
Not that I recall.
But anyway, once again, this motley crew of baby faces. Who wants to cheer for these baby faces against these heels? Sonny Kiss, Griff fucking Garrison, Jelly, and then, Brian Pillman. He doesn't even get in the goddamn match until the finish, after we watched the chorus girl doing the wrestling moves. Then a few of them did some more stupid shit on the apron, and finally tagged in Brian Pillman Jr., who came in with a springboard into a clothesline like a real fucking baby face and tried to make an actual comeback. The piece of shit fucking sloppy fat fucking butcher didn't sell a goddamn thing for him. They can all fucking take flips and sell for all their little fucking friends, but a real athlete gets in the ring. They don't want to put him over. And then they just did several sloppy things to Brian and cut him off, beat him flat. Boom. 1, 2, 3. So the one, listen to this, Sonny Kiss, Griff Garrison, Jelly Nutella, and Brian Pillman. The only real athlete with any potential whatsoever on that entire fucking squad of mud show fuckwits is Brian Pillman, and they beat him because they were conned into signing the other guys, and Brian just showed up. What the if they'd had any sense, they'd have made this an elimination match, and they would have had the heels beat Sonny Kiss and Griff Garrison and Jelly Nutella and leave just Brian Pillman by himself, and then Brian could have gone through all four of them, and you'd have got one guy over in one fucking night. Anyway, Dork Order comes out with a coffin and lawnmowers. And Pizzeria Uno tried to do a promo using his mean voice. You ought to see what a fucking plain, bland-ass white boy Putz McGee looking fuck this guy is under this mask. It's incredible. I've never seen a more nondescript looking human. This guy's the Invisible Man, because you would look right past him. You wouldn't even see anything.
That has become your favorite name / phrase, Putz McGee.
Putz McGee. Because that's what I would have named all these fucking guys in this company. Why did they bring out lawnmowers? What were the lawnmowers about? Did we understand that? Did they make any point of that?
I did not get what that was. I thought I missed something.
Then maybe they got a new sponsor, the Snapper Lawnmower people. This was horrible. It looked like any local cable access TV wrestling show with guys that have got together with their friends to play wrestler. And then they introduced, they shouldn't call him the Exalted One. They ought to call him the Exhausting One, Brody Lee, because every time I see him, I get tired quick. He ordered Tony Schiavone to the ring. I wrote, has there ever been a more low-budget looking heel group anywhere? At least Brody started yelling to try to convince himself that he means what he says on his promos instead of that just monotone fucking bleh he was doing. Did you hear him actually quote, all you indie wrestlers, no more TV time, because he's taking Cody's title away, right?
Yeah, that was great.
All you indie wrestlers, no more TV time. He should have said, except for all the ones in my fucking group of interchangeable midgets. He introduced Anna Jay. He was trying to say she's a very important part of the Dark Order. He introduced a very important piece, Anna Jay.
Maybe a slip of the tongue there.
He knocked out one of his own guys for the guy was telling Brody how great he was, so he knocked him out. He kicked Tony out of the ring verbally. I wrote, this is like the Three Stooges without the comedy. It just doesn't make any sense, but it's not funny. And then Brody Lee says, we are the hottest act in wrestling. This is the kind of talent that is being produced, folks, that calls themselves acts on television. And we are the hottest act in wrestling. I'd have fired him for that alone. Dustin and QT Marshall hit the ring and got beat up. Well, imagine that. 2 of them hit the ring where there's 8 guys. What the fuck did they think was going to happen? And then Scorpio Sky hit and made a partial comeback because he only made a comeback on the people that fed for him. But he didn't go for the leaders of the group that he really should be mad at. And all of them didn't feed him, just the ones that were supposed to take the bumps. So that then the girl gets in the ring and he turns his back on Brody Lee. 6'7", however many fucking 100 pounds, to confront Anna Jay, the important piece. And then Anna Jay slaps him and Brody clotheslines him from behind. Colt Cabana never does anything, says anything, or touches anybody. He's just out there with this group because that's intrigue for all the fucking video game players that are fucking currently masturbating in their mother's basement before they open up a Hot Pocket. All the job guys got sloppy heat on the baby faces. Brody Lee left the ring with Colt Cabana so that here comes Matt Cardona to make a big comeback on all the job guys that they left him in the ring with. Why did Brody Lee leave with Colt Cabana? So that they didn't have to take bumps for Cardona's comeback. This is so contrived and obvious. This was all awkward. It didn't flow. It was obviously a series of staged spots. And it's a goddamn mess. And that's the way they left that. Any thoughts?
Let me start with a positive. This was the best I've seen Brody Lee. I thought the promo was actually good because he got fired up and he was getting red in the face and he was yelling. Thought that was good. The fact that his whole crew, other than Cabana looks like a grown wrestler who's dressed nicely. But for the most part, his whole crew just looked like a bunch of job guys. Sorry, Matt Cardona, but
with Sharpies on their chests.
Yeah, it looks ridiculous. Dustin and QT come out. QT doesn't even get in the ring. He's holding his neck, and then Dustin's just getting his ass kicked. Made no sense. I don't know what the lawnmowers were. You know, a lot of people, you'll see this, and I've seen it for a while, since he was Luke Harper, will say, Brody Lee reminds me so much of Bruiser Brody. Why? Because he has a beard?
What? He has a beard and he's tall.
Yeah, what exactly reminds me of Bruiser
Abraham
Brody
Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln reminds me of Bruiser Brody. That's why he took the name, because he's a big, tall, sloppy fuck with hair, so he wanted to call himself Brody.
That's not his real name?
Oh, come on. That would be a little
I'm asking. I literally don't know. I don't know.
No, a guy that everybody thinks is a copy of Bruiser Brody and probably thinks he himself is a copy of Bruiser Brody, calling himself Brody. I don't think that's a coincidence. I don't know. Who knows what
Hold on. I'm looking it up. His real name is Jonathan Huber.
Well, there you go. See, he should have been Spike.
Spike Huber?
Spike Huber. There you go. At least next up, we found out that the Bucks are not going to take this shit anymore. They confronted Adam Page and kicked him out of the Woman Haters Club. And it was about damn time. That's right. Spanky and Alfalfa said to fucking Buckwheat, no, you can't. No, we thought you were our friend. They never explained why he did this specific thing on this specific night, but there was Road Warrior Buck actually crying, practically, all we wanted was a friend, and complaining about it was something it never was. It was like a fucking lover's quarrel. Jilted fucking, have you ever heard men speak to each other this way when they get mad at each other and one feels the other stabbed them in the back? Or is there a lot of motherfucker, I'm gonna fuck you up?
No, this was really, really weak.
It was like romper room. They were shooting this like that the goddamn the children's show characters turned on each other, but you couldn't use legitimate verbiage because the kids might think it was violent. And then when they threw the drink in his face and he stood there, I wrote, if any men actually watched this show, they probably liked Adam Page. Of any of these fucks in this company, they probably liked Adam Page, and now they don't because he just let these two whiny little grade school bitches punk him out and throw a drink in his face and walk off. Can you see Steve Austin doing that?
It feels like they're guilting him into rehab, doesn't it? We're not going to be your friend anymore because look at what you've been doing. You've been drinking alcohol since November. Matt Jackson's horrible on the mic.
Oh, it's
horrible.
It's gotten more preposterous. It's gotten more preposterous as it's gone along. But now you know why that these guys never had a job in any legitimate wrestling promotion before, because not one of them can say Suey if the Hogs had them.
That's
they
not
can't
true.
Fucking talk.
They were Generation Me in TNA.
There you go.
Hey, besides your feelings of him, just considering this angle and this feud, was anything said that I missed about where Omega was?
No, and you know what? I enjoyed the show quite a bit without him there, so I didn't really think about it.
This is you enjoying the show?
Well, at least I didn't have to look at Olivier. All right, we got to keep moving here. The next match, the handicap match, Big Swole versus Britt Baker, Penelope Ford, and Reba. And I knew that you would just bless me out to no end with all kinds of vulgarities and curse words if I zipped through another girls' match. So I watched this match. I'll never forgive you.
Well, let me stop you because that's really unfair. It's not you skipping any girls' match. It's you skipping the ones that are good with really talented women's wrestlers in them.
I never skip Rhea Ripley's matches.
You skip Sasha, you skip Bayley, you skip Asuka.
You talked about talented, really good wrestlers.
They are. They, in fact, are, and you wouldn't know it because you don't watch their matches. You skip past them. Now,
I watched here.
With that said, I'm not putting this match and these people in the same category as Bayley, Sasha Banks, and Asuka. Not at all.
Okay,
can I put this match in a category? I'll put this match in a category with the Night Stalker versus Sid Vicious.
I don't know if it was that good. Let me start with the compliment sandwich. Good stuff first. Britt Baker, great promo from the wheelchair. Her personality, her promos. And see, then that's where you can have some levity. It's the girls and the managers and the referees you can play with, and you can have some comedy and some entertainment. And it doesn't hurt the rest of your show, and it doesn't mar the main events. And she's perfect. She's great. And I like Reba, good old Rebel, because even though they still haven't clued the goddamn announcers in, they have her working like she's an assistant and doesn't know how to wrestle. And that's right, too. I just missed the part where that Big Swole and Penelope Ford aren't supposed to know how to wrestle either, because they made Reba look like Mildred Burke. At the opening bell, Penelope Ford picks Big Swole up, trips, falls down, and drops Swole on her fucking head. So that could have been the end of the match right there. And it was fucking worse from there. I wrote, Reba works like she's not supposed to know how to work, and Swole and Ford really don't know how to work. And that Swole beat up Sabian. Kip Sabian was at ringside. Why not? Everybody else can beat him up. He's fucking minute. Reba actually hit her moonsault, which was not only the best move of the match, but the only one that I actually recognized as a wrestling move. I figured Penelope Ford's hair must have turned white when they told her she had to wrestle Swole on national television. Then Reba, Reba went to hit Swole with a crutch while Penelope Ford held her. But the referee took it away. I believe it was Paul Turner. I like Paul Turner. And, of course, they buried him because he takes the crutch away and immediately goes over to the corner and spends 45 seconds handing the crutch out. Because guess what there is of crutches? 2 of them. So they hand the other crutch to Reba while his back is turned. And Reba goes for the fucking swing, and Swole ducks, and Reba missed everybody, and all 3 of them fell down. And Swole pinned Penelope Ford. Classic AEW wrestling match. Of everything that AEW does, they have this kind of match, the absolute best. It's like somebody literally just hung up a sign that said, wrestling ring inside, play at your leisure, and opened the doors, and everybody went in and started playing in the wrestling ring.
I have to say, I think this may have been the single worst match in the history of AEW Dynamite.
I can agree with that. I mean, there's a lot of competition, but the only I tell a lie.
A special league of bad.
There have been some that were so long, though. At least this was brief.
Penelope Ford has tremendous potential.
Yeah, to do what?
Well, let me take out tremendous.
To be a cheerleader.
She has potential.
She does a great cartwheel and couple of round-offs.
She has potential because she also carries herself like a star.
A star cheerleader.
Will you stop? Big Swole is terrible.
Horrible.
I mean, not just in the ring, too. Last week, there was another incident on Dynamite I noticed. I forget who it was. Someone was brawling in the crowd. May have been Lance Archer. No, it couldn't have been Archer. Had to be someone else. They're brawling in the crowd. Once again, she's like getting in the person's face. Like,
oh,
she
yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. It's like.
Yeah, just her promos.
And see here, once again, this is why that the fucking pussification of modern society has led to the detriment of wrestling. Because if a woman got up in a heel's face when he was getting heat like that, and she was supposedly one of the boys in the business, she'd have got fucking put down real quick. But they're afraid to fucking touch her.
Reba also isn't very good in the ring. Like, this was a disaster waiting to happen. I think anyone could have anticipated it. Worst match.
No, wait a minute. I must take up for Reba.
Oh, come on.
I've seen her work. She's not like this. She's working on purpose like she doesn't know how to work because she's the assistant. But the announcers keep talking about how she's an ex-wrestler. It doesn't make any sense. She's doing kind of what she's supposed to do.
I just rewatched that Shelly Martinez match because after we mentioned it, someone sent it to us.
All right, well, that was 5 years ago. Give the girl a break. Whether she can work or not, she's supposed to work like she can't work, and that's what she's doing.
Worst match in Dynamite.
Comes
history.
Naturally.
I'm so happy you didn't fast forward this one. I really am.
But did you, right after that, here comes Pizzeria Uno back out. We haven't seen enough of the Dark Order or the Dork Order or the Dork Odor or whatever. He gives a folder to Anna Jay's friend Taya. And apparently they were tag team partners in the tournament, and they hug. So now I wrote, oh joy, now the Dork Order has a girls division. That's all we needed. The fuck? All right. I'm going to finish this up real quick because this was the stupidest thing of all. After this stinker of a show with some of the worst matches, the worst promos, the worst booking, whatever the fuck, they have Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara set up for the main event. It's a tables match. They can't just have a match. They have to have the tables match shit. That'll hurt it. But I'm figuring at least we're going to see something. They started this fucking match with a brawl as they should have. It's a hot fucking angle. And within under a minute, they go to a break. Break up the momentum. Right in the middle. They're on this show. They not only leave 8 minutes for the main event, but we've seen 20 minutes of that tag team goddamn buffoonery. And Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara in a fight, and they have to go to the break. They can't do the last break before this match gets started. Nobody knows how to format a fucking television show. This goddamn abortion of a fucking company. I get hotter about it the more I think of it. Because these guys could have done something. But now they're back from break. They got 5 minutes left on the air. Sammy Guevara's bleeding. Tables are everywhere. The shit they aired on this show, and we couldn't see whatever happened, except the picture-in-picture that nobody in their right mind is going to fucking watch. Because it has no audio, no commentary, and even on a fucking 82-inch screen, it's goddamn minute. Fucking idiocy. Matt misses an elbow drop off the apron through the table, goes through the table, but it's not the finish. Because it's not just go through a table, it's put somebody through a table as an offensive maneuver. So now we're seeing table breaking before the finish, which is to break a table. What the fuck? It's somebody is going to say, well, that's right, because he went through it on his own. No, you idiot. The fact is, if you break a table before the finish, where the finish means you have to break a table, then you've just taken the goddamn bloom off the fucking finish. Don't break the table but once for the finish. Ugh. Matt Hardy gives fucking Sammy a twist of fate with Freudian. Twist of fate with the chair around his neck, but that wasn't the finish. He can't even cover him because you can't pin anybody. So he just gave his finish to a guy, plus with a chair around his neck, and it looked good, but now they've got to goddamn do more shit. He's got to get back up from that. I wrote, I wish we could have just had a match here. Matt Hardy sets the table up over the chair, puts Sammy on it, goes to the top rope, takes his time. Sammy catches him, superplexes him through the table. So that's great, except we just saw a table break. Didn't matter. A 2-hour show, and we get a garbage match for a main event that lasts 3 minutes. And then Pockets runs out and jumps Jericho, and they have a pull apart with the referee. As we've mentioned, fucking guys are kidnapped, thrown in the trunks of cars, beaten with fucking hammers. Nobody comes out. 160-pound fucking fishy white guy from Pennsylvania somewhere comes out and tackles Chris Jericho, and every referee on the roster is right there instantly to break it up, because Jericho knows that there's no urgency and there's no excitement unless people are trying to break the fight up. So now we have people breaking the fight up or not, depending on whether the people in the fight have the power to get people to come out and break it up or not. So it'll look good. Here, listen to this.
What was that?
That was me throwing the whole notepad 20 feet across my office.
All right, well, at least it still is in one piece. It's not ripped up or burned this time.
I'm going to go take it later on down to the gas station so that I can shove it down the toilet and flush it, and it won't stop up my pipes. It'll stop up theirs.
All right.
Closing thoughts on the show from your part?
Well, I fast forwarded the Matt Hardy match. I exercised my Matt Hardy rule, which is I don't need to see Matt Hardy ever again. So I didn't watch any of that. I saw the brawl with Orange Cassidy and Jericho, which was ridiculous. I did get a kick out of Jim Ross seemingly. I don't know who he was yelling at. If he's yelling at the referees or the wrestlers. Jim Ross is up there yelling at someone. The Big Swole match is one people should go out of their way to see.
Yeah, don't miss that.
It's quite the spectacle. FTR were great. MJF and Moxley, fantastic dueling promos if you could just ignore everything else around it. Thought Brody Lee did a really good promo. Thought Jake, I don't know what color his mustache is now, but Jake and Taz talking over each other was bizarre, but I like Taz with Ricky Starks and Cage. And I'm actually looking forward to Omega and Page versus FTR at the pay-per-view, and to see what they do with Moxley versus MJF.
You're more optimistic than I am, my boy.
I'm optimistic that FTR will have a fantastic match with Page and Omega. I absolutely, 100% I am. I've got faith in Dax and Cash. Those guys know what they're doing.
I think they can have a great match with Page, and it just depends on what planet Olivier's living on that day. We'll see.
All right.
Well, I've got to say, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the MJF and Moxley match myself, and I'm in a morbid way, I may be looking forward to seeing what happens in the lawyer match next week, because we'll know whether they have a half a clue about how to promote a pay-per-view match or they just want to jack the babyface off some more.
Well, imagine how this whole angle would have gone if MJF had a real attorney in his corner. Imagine how the match would go next week if MJF had a real attorney, one in possession of the Southeastern Championship. But imagine if MJF had a real attorney.
Imagine if he had a real attorney, somebody who will have lunch with Ronnie Garvin and tell him that there's no way that he is going to sue Jim Cornette 33 years later for that fireball. Imagine if MJF had an attorney like that.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Still sue the rest.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Stephen P. New is the man for you. NewLawOffice.com, 888-692-8084. He did call me last week, left a message on my machine. I was not by the phone. And he had just turned down Ronnie Garvin. He just had lunch with Ronnie Garvin. Ronnie Garvin wanted Stephen to sue me for disfigurement, for burning him with that fireball 33 years ago. And Stephen said not only would it be a conflict of interest because he represents me too, but also the statute of limitations on cosmic fireballs is 29 years. So I made it out unscathed. But folks, if somebody has done something to you, don't wait 33 years. Call 888-692-8084 as soon as you humanly can. Because Stephen has gotten a lot of judgments for a lot of people who were wronged by a lot of big corporations, big billionaires, and major muckety-mucks, and he can do the same thing for you. He can't take every case from British Guiana to Swaziland, but folks, especially if you're in the United States of America and you have a case against a major company that has done you wrong or someone that has malpracticed you, well, then Stephen P. New is the man for you. Get even with Stephen. And I don't know what he can do about people impersonating professional wrestlers, but if he would open up that line of work, I know I would have a lot of business for him.
888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com.
It's amazing how you've memorized that number.
I call it several times a week usually.
I did. I at least you told me not to put the 1 in front of it. I was made aware of that here early on. All right. We're going to close the show today talking about Bullet Bob Armstrong. And I guess most people heard that he passed away this past week. We've mentioned it's been on the internet. He was suffering from cancer for a while now, bone cancer at different places, couple or 3 different places. And he decided against any treatment, which is kind of what, Bullet Bob would do, because I think he was probably faced with, well, we're going to, treat you and make you miserable for quite a while on the theory that maybe you can beat this. But, he decided he was 80 and he was going to do things the way he wanted to do them. I didn't tweet about it. It's been a while since I have mentioned or reiterated my policy on tweeting about people that have passed away. It always made me uncomfortable because when a friend or someone you worked with or a hero or an idol or somebody dies and you're supposed to, in 240 characters or less, say something pithy that somebody else hadn't said. And I got sick of just saying the same thing over and over, because what can you say and how can you do it in that brief period of time? And also, since I got the bots and the goofs after me, anything I tweet, even about a serious situation, some wise ass has something to say, and I didn't want to bring that into it and don't want to bring anybody else in on it, and of the family or whatever. So I don't tweet about stuff like this anymore. But we were doggone sure going to say something about it on the show, because not only was Bob Armstrong a great wrestler and the head of a great wrestling family and a great person in general, but he was special to me at several different parts of my life, specifically in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, where he made the company. And, it's just, this is what I mean when I say, for whatever reason, because the business has changed, you can't find guys like this anymore that have everything. And Bob, that's why Bob was always the standout member of the Armstrong family. And I don't think any of the kids are going to be mad at me for saying this, because he was the talent that had in the family had the most longevity. He had the complete package. He looked like $1 million. He had the fucking physique. But he also had the athleticism. He was jacked up, but he was lean. He could move. He had fire and body language. He could cut that promo. Not just a drab babyface promo, but one of the reasons why he was such an over babyface in the South is because babyfaces in the South had to be able to fucking talk. And he could talk to people just like somebody that they knew. When he would say, jackasses can't run with racehorses. I'm a Southern-born, Southern-bred thoroughbred, and it's a case of mind over matter. I don't mind and you don't matter. All that bullshit, people loved that. He could talk to the people. They believed in him. He looked the part. His work was immaculate. He worked exactly like you would expect this guy to work. Ex-Marine, ex-fireman, manly man, the big arms, whether he was the Bullet, or whether it was the Georgia Jawjacker, or, his high school nickname was Pep. A lot of the guys like Les Thatcher and Bob's contemporaries still to this day called him Pep, because he just had that fucking energy. And, we've talked about here recently, they made him a big star. At first, he was on the card and he was a babyface. He was local in Georgia. But when the Georgia Wrestling War came about in 1972, he stuck with the NWA office. And they started using him more as a local babyface. He started getting over as a top guy. And by the mid-70s, not only was he over in Georgia, but then I think 75, Jarrett brought him to the Memphis end first. And then Nick used him for a couple of years there, 75, 76, 77. He'd come in, he'd either be the Southern champion in Memphis or the Mid-America champion in Nashville, Nick's end. They always used him on top. And he was involved in when Lawler had been gone for most of 75 out of Memphis and came back, he was a babyface because he'd left that way. But Bob and Bill Dundee, they did a three-way thing where they turned Lawler back heel. And Bob was an intricate part of that because he'd been a top guy over the summer. One of the first times I saw Bob live was that match that I've talked about a million times with the Mongolian Stomper in Louisville. And I say the match is on tape on the DVD that comes with Tuesday Night at the Gardens. And I'm not saying that to try to sell something, but I was amazed when I finally laid my hands on that tape, on that film 20 years later when I was in the business. And I could study it for what it was rather than what I saw with my own eyes that night. But that night I'm there at ringside. I'm on the front row. I've got my Kodak Instamatic camera. One of the pictures I took from that night's on the cover of Tuesday Night at the Gardens also. All the great matches usually had Jerry Lawler or the fucking normal Memphis crew and the heels that they had and the craziness and the chaos. But this was different. Lawler was gone. They were trying out new baby faces. Dundee hadn't turned yet. Bob came in. He wasn't the Bullet yet. The Mongolian Stomper's the Southern champion. And I think they had one or two matches beforehand, but the one that I remember, it was an average match. It was a good match, main event match, but nothing out of the ordinary for a traditional Louisville Gardens Tuesday night. Until all of a sudden, Stomper's getting the heat on Bullet Bob. I call him Bullet. And Stomper hits the ropes. Bob's laying flat on his back. Stomper hits the ropes and comes with that big boot and that big stomp right to the forehead. Boom. And Bob sits up and instantly gushes blood down his whole face. And it's 12 feet away from me. And I'd been going to the matches for over a year. I'd been watching on TV for 3 years or so. I kind of knew there's something going on in some places you could tell, but nobody knew what at the time. But when I saw this and the last 3 or 4 minutes of this fucking match, it made me believe wrestling was real again. I was starting to have doubts. I'm just like a lot of the rest of the people in the gardens. Well, there's something going on. We don't know what. When that fucking boot came down on Bob's head, he sat up and started gushing blood. I'm like, holy shit, that's real. And then when fucking Bob starts getting up and making the comeback, and he starts fucking firing those right hands on the Stomper, and he's beating the Stomper, and the Stomper starts bleeding. And the people are, the fire and the body language and the head shaking and the finger pointing from Bob going, I'm going to get you, you son of a bitch. And the Stomper of all people backing up from somebody. And there's blood spurting everywhere from both these guys. The people in the gardens were literally not only standing up, but they were jumping up and down, screaming, get him, get him. And it's the goddamnest thing I've ever seen. It made me, for that night again, believe I don't care what anybody else does. Wrestling has to be real. This is fucking real. It's right in front of me. And it was chaos, and it was a double count out. Blood flew everywhere. One of the fans attacked the Stomper on the way back from the goddamn ring. It was crazy. And of course, the one camera back in the back of the arena on the stage, we've talked about it before. That can't take you in the moment. That's why I wish that some of these old matches had the HD multi-camera shoots, because you'd see the faces and you'd see the blood flying, you'd see the animosity, and you hear the smack of the people hitting each other. That's what made people in those arenas believe what they were seeing. So that was a tremendous, memorable match that I saw. And then later on in 76, I got a chance to do the ringside photography. And Bob came back in a couple of times in early 77. I got to meet him. And also at the same time, we've told this story, I joined all the fan clubs. For $3 or $4 a year, you'd get an autographed picture of whoever the fucking guy was that the fan club was for, and you'd get monthly bulletins or bi-monthly or quarterly or whatever, which were the people, the presidents of the fan clubs would type out on a typewriter on a piece of paper each page of the bulletin, and they'd take it to a copy machine and get it run off and copied. And they ranged in quality, everything from a fucking 4-page fold over that somebody wrote by hand and copied to, 20-page bulletins stapled, nicely laid out. On the typewriter, if you wanted to put a picture in, you would just type around the space you were going to tape the picture there with double stick tape and put it in the copier, but he got the job done. And I joined Bob Armstrong's fan club. And then after 3 or 4 issues of the Bulletin in a little while, the guy that operated the club, he wrote me because I'd sent in results and pictures and everything. He said, well, would you like to take over the club? I don't have time for it, school or something, whatever. And I'm like, I love Bob Armstrong, but I love all the wrestlers. I wouldn't have particularly picked Bob as to be the, run a fan club for him, but I wanted to do the Bulletin because even then I was a frustrated magazine publisher, and I started in the photography, and now I'm going to do a magazine, right? So I agreed to take it over. And he sent me the entire club treasury to print the bulletins. I think it was $4. And I spent 4 times that much on the first bulletin because I made it 20 pages legal size with all these fucking pictures and everything. But I got a chance not only to talk to Bob a couple of times, but also this is when now he had started working over in the southeastern area for Ron Fuller in Knoxville. And I had a correspondent over there, pen pal, that sent me some of the programs and the results. And she actually took an interview page to Bob with questions on it that I was hoping he would answer for the bulletin. And he took the time after one of his workouts to write down the answers and give her the paper back at the next week's matches so she could send it back to me. I've still got that paper. But that's the kind of guy. He was nice to the fans, not because it was his job as a babyface, but because besides the fact he was a nice guy, he was the kind of guy. He didn't wipe his feet on the people that were running his fan club or members of his fan club. After I got in the business, he didn't come into the Tennessee the Memphis territory much after that, because he was primarily in Knoxville, and then with the Fullers as they opened up Continental, And the Alabama territory, he was booking for them. He was a top star for them.
He owned a piece of the territory.
He owned a piece of Knoxville, and I think he owned a piece later on of Continental at the other end, didn't he? At different points in time.
He owned a piece of Alabama, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why a lot of people say, well, if he, why didn't he travel more? He was of the generation where you could get over in your home area or in the adjacent territories, and you could work a 15, 20-year career and never have to fucking go to Washington State or California. Or I'm sure if they'd have wanted him in New York for that money, he'd have probably gone. But Bob, like the rest of the Armstrong family, they all like to be around home. And they were perfect talents for wrestling in the South because they knew exactly how to do it. They knew the tricks. They knew how to talk to the people. And I should have said also in that Stomper and Armstrong match, when I finally got the film 20 years later and I was already in the business and I could see how they worked some of the magic and I could see how they made me fucking believe when I was standing there watching it. I used a couple of their tricks and a few other finishes and big shows that I've done in the past. But it's amazing what you can see when you're looking for it, but you can't see something when you don't know where it is. Anyway, so Bob was, he lived in Pensacola for years and years and years, and he worked out of that territory, and he would make brief sojourns to Florida or to Georgia or whatever, and always go back to his home territory. And he was a main event guy there and a legend for all those years. He worked some for Crockett in 86, he and Brad as a team. And that's really the first time that I got to work with Bullet after I got in the business and we were both in the locker room and on the same card. So that was kind of a thrill. I'd met Brad down in Louisiana, and I was always a big fan of Brad's. Everybody said how he was the most underrated wrestler in the business, and all the guys who look for great technicians said Brad Armstrong was the smoothest. Brad Armstrong was the best. And a lot of people have said, well, he was held back. He couldn't cut a promo, or he could cut a promo, but Brad was the most interesting personality in the locker room and the most fun and the most entertaining. But he was comfortable being himself in the locker room. I don't think he was ever comfortable being himself speaking on television or being who he thought he should be. In the ring, he was a natural, second nature, could do anything. Didn't like the microphone. He couldn't settle down in front of it. That's where Bob had the promo. Brad got the work. I've mentioned before, Steve was probably the best raw athlete. Scott had the business mind. And Road Dogg, Brian, could cut the promo. Bob, they each got one major aspect of what made Bob complete. But anyway, the biggest thing that Bullet Bob did for me was make Smoky Mountain Wrestling what it was able to be for as long as it was able to be that. I guess he retired full time in 88 when Continental went under, but at the same time, he never really retired. He had a match not long ago, but he settled down, and instead of being booked in territories because there weren't any more, he just decided to do the independents and stuff down near Florida and Alabama. And that's what he was doing when I called him about Smoky Mountain Wrestling, because I've said before, I wanted Brad Armstrong as my first champion, and I didn't get him because he was under contract. We made do with Brian Lee as a babyface till we got Tracy Smothers. And I've said before, Tracy probably, we talked about this, ended up doing better than Brad would have at that point in time because he was brand new and fresh. The people hadn't seen him, and he had that fiery promo. And he established himself, whereas the people had seen Brad, he may not have been as fresh. Tracy wasn't the worker Brad was, but goddamn, he hustled. But I never intended to use Bob Armstrong in any other fashion, and I never intended for Bob Armstrong's spot to be taken by anybody else. From the time I started thinking about Smoky Mountain Wrestling, that's the only spot that I wanted for Bullet, and that's the only person I wanted for that spot. Because I realized, besides the fact that a new promotion needed someone to give it credibility that the promotion was fair, the promotion was honest, the promotion was babyface, so that the heels would get the heat and not the company, which in the 90s was starting to be a thing. I also wanted, I knew that some of the baby faces I was going to be using might not be able to cut that great of a promo, but Bullet Bob could make these matches. But more importantly, that was my attempt, and it ended up working, to recreate the last Stampede and to give Smoky Mountain Wrestling our ace in the hole that we needed. Whenever we determined that nothing else was going to work, I knew that putting Bob back in the ring would work. However good anything was going to work, that was going to work or nothing else would. And so I called Bob. I don't know if I ever told you this story, but when I first called Bob and told him about it and asked him and booked him for the first TV, I said, Bob, I'm going to start a promotion. We're going to be based out of Knoxville. It's going to be called Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And I would like you to make our first TV. And he's like, oh, yeah, okay, I'd be glad to. And I said, I want you to be the commissioner. And that's when he started, well, now, you know, Jimmy, I still wrestle down here. You know, I got the bullet mask and I also wrestle as myself. And he was thinking he'd been a main event name and a top talent for so long, and maybe I'd thought that he didn't want to wrestle anymore, that he'd retired or he was too old or whatever, and he wanted to let me know that he'd be more than happy to come in and wrestle for me. And it was almost like he was kind of taken aback that I didn't want him to wrestle. I said, Bob, let me explain why I'm thinking this way. I don't want to make you my top babyface. I want younger guys for that. But I want you to be the face of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and tell him about the credibility and et cetera, and you making the matches and you being the babyface personality. But also I told him, I said, our ace in the hole is if we can draw without you, that's great, because then we can take our time and pull the trigger when it's right, and we'll draw even better. But if we can't get this thing over, you're my last fucking hope. And we're putting you back in the ring will be the equivalent of Bill Watts coming out of retirement. And so then he understood. And he wrestled on a few of the spot shows we did around the early tapings, because we weren't on TV anyway, and Bob Armstrong was a name, so why not advertise him in Oakwood, Virginia? But as the commissioner, we waited a year and a half. And we had some nice houses in a few other places, but Knoxville, whether with Kevin Sullivan, the Big Boss Man, the Steiner brothers, whoever the fuck we brought in, we couldn't get it over 10 grand. We couldn't get it over about fucking, 1,500 people. And so finally, that's why at the May Rage in the Cage, May of 93, we had Bob the referee, and we handcuffed him, and I fucking beat him up, and we did the hospitalization angle, and all the heels killed him. And then we brought his boys in to get even. And then finally Bob reappeared, and we did the show in August that year where we did almost $20,000, doubled our previous best house in Knoxville, and did over 2,000 people. And that's what kicked Knoxville off. From then on, we didn't always draw big, but we didn't just draw as shitty as we had been. We were doing good. And that's it. It was better at the start also, I think, not to have any of the Armstrong boys under their own names, because that way Bob was not the commissioner of a company in which his children were wrestling. But he had mentioned when I called him, he said, Scott has the Dixie Dynamite outfit, and the kids love that, especially on the spot shows. I said, perfect. And that's why we started booking Dixie Dynamite, because as you will recall again, Dixie Dynamite was never revealed as Scott Armstrong, never unmasked, never took his mask off. And there was never any interplay between Dixie Dynamite and Bullet Bob until I came out and revealed myself that it was Scott Armstrong. And I said that he was wearing a mask because he was ashamed of his father and he was ashamed of his family name. And Scott comes out and pulls the mask off himself on TV and says, I don't wear this mask because I'm ashamed of my father. I wear this mask because I love my father. Because the man my father is, I didn't want anybody saying that he was playing favorites or making his son out to be something better than he was. I wanted to do it on my own, and I didn't want anybody to think ill of my father. And I'll be damned if I'm going to stand here and let a punk like you talk about him. This was some real Then here comes Bullet. And he takes, and we always made a rib. He, as the commissioner, he had a clip-on tie. And when he'd fucking jerk that clip-on tie, like everybody's uncle in fucking Tennessee, right? When he jerked that clip-on tie off, the people would pop because now he's not the commissioner anymore. And he'd turn the cap around. And we did the whole goddamn deal. It was real. It was real emotions. I'm knocking their family. They're taking up for each other. That's what, and Bullet was so convincing. He got it over and they believed in him. And from then on, Bullet, I didn't have him wrestle. I booked him anytime he would come up from Pensacola. I'd book him for the whole week because I was paying him for the whole week, whether he wrestled or not, because it's Bullet, right? He's not just going to drive up from Pensacola every time for, one shot. But I tried to keep it special only on the big shows. He put me in the hospital in front of that big house, got even. The next month, I brought Terry Funk in. The main event was Terry Funk versus Bob Armstrong. It was the biggest drop in the history of Knoxville. We went from almost 20 grand to like 5 grand, 700 people. Yes, it was September, back to school month. That sucks, but also personal issues draw money. There was no reason for people to come. He had gotten even with me. He'd put me in the hospital. What, are they going to come see Terry Funk beat him up? They don't want to see that. I thought we might draw 7 grand on the names, but the point is we started over. And then I started trying to get even with Bob, and Terry Funk was involved, and the people that I would bring in, we revamped the whole angle because he had resigned as commissioner. So we fought over the commissionership. And then finally he's installed back as commissioner. But shit goes over the line again the next year. And the main event of August 94 was Dory and Terry Funk and Bruiser Bedlam with me in the corner against Road Warrior Hawk, Tracy Smothers, and Bullet Bob with Ron Wright. And we did $35,000. We doubled the previous August almost and did 4,000 people. We kept Bob special. He was the only one that didn't sell the racket unless he'd already had a big match and was beat down. If I hit him from behind, he'd sell it. But normally he didn't sell the racket. He would bow up and make a comeback. He didn't wrestle except in feature matches against big stars or people that were involved with me. And he was still drawing. He was on the underneath against one of my guys, underneath the main event of Shawn Michaels and Buddy Landell at the Super Bowl the next August, 95, in one of the feature matches because the people didn't get tired of it. They didn't get tired of him. As long as you made him special and kept him special and did the right things and let him talk and get the deal over, it was fucking gold. And the one regret that I have is that Christmas of 95, we closed down after Thanksgiving. Christmas of 95 was going to be the first time ever that all 5 of the Armstrong family had a 10-man tag team match. It was going to be all of my heels against Bullet, Brad, Brian, Scott, and Steve. The first time in 10 years, they'd all been not under contract. And we didn't make it that far. But I loved running Marietta, where we do the Armstrong family reunion. And, the guys would go out and fucking sing on stage with the band, and Bullet would do his shuffle. Tracy would do a passable rendition of Uneasy Rider. And, Bob was perfect for that company, that territory, and that time, and he had the best background to make him the perfect guy. And he was always willing to help everybody. Every green... Boy, it was tough having to work with Bruiser Bedlam or Barry Buchanan in his younger, greener days. But all the green guys I put him in the ring with, he never complained. You got the best that you could possibly get out of it. He was always, professional. And when I started thinking about this, and honestly, I postponed doing the show from yesterday because I didn't know for sure I was ready to talk about it yet. But when I think about we did a show on Lance Russell, and I couldn't fucking stop crying. And I wrote a column on Lance Russell after he passed away, and every time I read it to this day, I just bawl like a baby. I'm upset about Bullet, and my eyes kind of well up about Bullet, but but when you think about it, he's 80 years old and lived a heck of a life. Of course, Lance was 90, but it's hard to cry about Bullet because I looked at him like a Southern version of Lou Thez. You never thought, even with cancer, well, he'll be the guy that beats it. Nothing can stop Bullet. Nothing could stop Thez. It's like Uncle Dave had in The Observer. Bullet was working out till, a month or two ago. He was go over to Scott's house and fucking bench press. He actually had nerve damage and we lost control of one of his pinky fingers a while back from bumps, neck stuff, whatever. And he couldn't grip his fucking barbells good. So he went to the doctor and had him cut the fucking pinky finger off so he'd get a better grip. It's the fucking Bullet. It's like a superhero or, a sports hero. Even though I knew him personally, you're sad, but you can't. This is not a figure that you feel sympathy for in that way because he's a fucking superhero. He's what a fucking guy, 80-year-old guy with cancer in multiple places, bench pressing and still working out and still, fucking visiting with his kids. In cases like this, I don't know what to say, except I love the Armstrong family, every single one of them. I've enjoyed every interaction I've had with every member of the family, and Bullet was the fucking leader of the pack. And they were hilarious to be around, fucking great for the show, great in the locker room. And Bullet had that personality and that fire. You go back and look at the promo the tribute that the WWE did and put on the network. Just showed. Remember when that clip from Florida in '74 or whatever? He runs up the turnbuckles and jumps off and double fucking hammer fists both the fucking heels and does his fucking head shake and the knees, and the people are going insane. He could take a live crowd of people and sell and get their sympathy and then make a comeback and have them hopping up and down. I saw him do it for 20 fucking years. And everybody since last week, he's passed away. Everybody from Lance Storm to fucking everybody that ever knew him, Mick Foley, has written tributes on their Twitters or their Facebooks about what a great guy he was. He was a star that treated them like one of the boys when he didn't have to. Lance used to tell a story about one time we had one more promo left to do, and Bob had already got his stuff together, was headed to the car. I said, "Oh, shit, get Bob back. We need one more." And he comes in carrying his bag, drops his bag, has one of the guys hold his cigarette, fucking walks up. The announcer does the pitch. He cuts a 1.5-minute promo. It was fucking perfect. Right on time at the end. He said, "That's how you do it, son. Don't get no better than that." Grabbed his cigarette, grabbed his bag, and went and got in the car. Anyway, I could go on all day, and it seems like I have. But I will mention that the family put out the funeral information, which I retweeted, and I don't have right here in front of me, but you can find it. It's out there. But instead of, if anybody's not planning to go in person in the Florida Panhandle, in exception of flowers, they've asked for donations to the American Cancer Society. And we did this before in honor of Dennis Condrey for the Midnight Express for his battle with cancer. We've sold Midnight Express pictures and et cetera, and with proceeds going to the American Cancer Society. With Bobby Fulton, who and is still having a rough time, and we're thinking about Bobby. I talked to him the other day. He had a local charity that he was donating to, but now with Bullet, they've asked that donations go to the American Cancer Society also. I don't have just a brand new piece of merchandise to cut a portion of off for that right now. So I'm sending $500 this week. And they ask you make it in memory of Bob Armstrong or in honor of Bob Armstrong. I guess a lot of people don't even know his real name isn't even Armstrong. And I want to thank Scott publicly, because Scott, a couple weeks ago, Bullet happened to be over at his house, and he was probably looking for ways to, I don't know, cheer Bullet up, but just to give Bullet something to do. And also he was, I think, trying to let everybody get a chance to talk to him again. And he called me and said, hey, I got to, Bullet's here at the house. He left me a message, and I called back and called him. And I got a chance to talk to Bullet and tell him not only what he had meant to me and to Smoky Mountain Wrestling, but to a lot of those guys, and how much we appreciated it. And of course, this same Bullet, we talked about 8 or 10 minutes and laughed and told a couple of old stories, and he sounded the same as always. And as Scott told me, Bullet always got a kick out of me, and I appreciate that. But the last thing that Bullet said to me was, well, I got to go, Jimmy. I got to go take a shit. And that's perfect, I think. Honestly.
I tweeted out the other day that Bob Armstrong was one of the giants of Southern wrestling. If you really think about it, you mentioned he really didn't go up north or anywhere else, but Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, he was a giant of Southern wrestling. We didn't even touch on how important he was to the history of Georgia wrestling. Whether it was sticking with the NWA office when Ann Gunkel and Tom Renesto had everyone rebel against the office, try to steal the territory, or whether it was his role with Brad in getting Roddy Piper over on national TV.
Yeah. Oh, that angle. And I was so mad at Piper because the story in the business at that time was he got fired, and he ended up going to Pensacola for a little while because he said he just wanted to go somewhere where he could make $1,000 a week and do his coke all day. And he got sideways before they had the fucking finish of that goddamn program with Bullet and Piper. So I was mad at Piper because I wanted to see that, because the promos were incredible and the build-up and the people, blah, blah, blah. Anyway.
But then you bring up Pensacola, you bring up Continental, Southeastern, not even talking about Knoxville. And I got to witness Bob Armstrong in Knoxville with Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Again, not when
you should have seen it with Southeastern. When he was in his mid-30s and a fucking greyhound, and those people they loved him.
But one of the things I've discovered through working with Ron Fuller and seeing the reaction from people to Ron's stories on the Studcast is that it's true that Southeastern, Alabama, Pensacola is a forgotten territory. And in a lot of ways, an ignored territory, because they didn't seek out magazine attention. They kind of did their own thing. And what people may not have realized was how
it was the West Texas Amarillo funk territory of the South.
Yeah.
They were kind of geographically isolated, small area in terms of market size and the area that they covered, but great talent in it. And that's why a lot of those guys wanted a short trip territory where you could make $750 or $1,000 a week on top and be home till 5 o'clock every day. And the Fullers were masters at fucking setting those up.
And you can't underestimate how important Bob Armstrong was to the southern end, to Alabama and Pensacola. Again, he got to be a partner in the office, but he was a major star as a babyface. Anyone who has never seen any of his heel work, when he turned heel on Ron Fuller, Ron had a match with Ric Flair. Bob Armstrong, the longtime babyface, the guest referee, turns on Ron Fuller.
The only heel run he ever did.
And he was fantastic. Starts smoking his cigarette on TV. I mean, you have to see it. It's really great stuff. And Ron Fuller is going to talk a lot about it because I know he loved Bob Armstrong. And he's going to talk about it on the Studcast this week. So anyone who wants to hear Ron's thoughts and learn a little bit about Bob Armstrong's role in Alabama, in Southeastern, should check out the Studcast this week. But he is truly one of the giants of Southern wrestling. He had title runs in Florida, title runs in Memphis. He was so important.
Think about this: Florida, Georgia, Southeastern in Alabama, and later Continental in Alabama, Southeastern in Knoxville, the Goulas, Middle Tennessee territory, the Memphis end. which obviously encompassed most of Kentucky, as well as really he never worked the Mid-South Territory. He didn't go farther west than the Mid-South Territory, and he never went north of southern Indiana, and he only briefly worked the Carolinas, I think simply because he was figured in the office and a main event guy. Why would you want to go to the Carolinas and start over that far from home when you're figured in and part owner and or booker, and the money you're making is probably comparable to a mid-level position you'd get there? But he literally wrestled full time for over 25 years, and then spot shows after that in that geographic area of the country, and never went wanting for a job, was always constantly booked whenever he wanted to be.
And in an era now where we have a lot of guys who, for the last 40 years almost, we've seen guys on steroids, guys on growth hormone, big guys. It's easy to ignore or not know of or forget that Bob Armstrong had one of the most impressive physiques in wrestling in his early years. I mean, I remember
from the waist up.
I won't speak about it.
And to see that tied into it, he had skinny legs, but that's why he said, "Hey, jackasses can't run with racehorses. I'm a southern-born, southern-bred thoroughbred. You ever see a racehorse's legs?" But the arms of Armstrong, he had the big chest and the big arms and the tiny waist. And even as he got up in his 50s, his waist got a little bigger, but so did his arms and his chest. And that was just fucking lifting weights all the time. He was bench pressing at Scott Armstrong's house last month, for fuck's sake.
I talked to Fumi Saito on 605 once about one of the Japanese tours that Bob Armstrong was on, or I think his only Japanese tour, actually. And he goes, yeah, there were a bunch of fat guys and Bob Armstrong. And that's who was over his physique. You see a photo, it's him and a bunch of guys who don't have that physique. He stood out, and, I personally am grateful. I got to see him work the main event in Knoxville, Night of Legends, actually. I was about to say Night of Champions. Night of Legends, Bob Armstrong, Tracy Smothers, and Road Warrior Hawk against the Funks and Bruiser Bedlam. I got to see him work a spot show in 95 where he just decided to wear the mask and come out dancing the Bad to the Bone.
Yeah.
It's like one of those lasting memories. There weren't that many people there. It was a really tiny show. He decided to wear the mask.
Well, and hold on. We got to tell that story real quick. The reason why he started wearing a mask and became the Bullet, what was it, 83-ish maybe?
Yeah, because I think it was after the Piper thing, yeah.
He was in Atlanta. He was lifting weights in the gym, and one of the ends of the barbell, the plates weren't secured properly, and one of them fell off. And the point is, the bar landed, and Bob benched fairly heavy, so it was a few hundred pounds, landed on his face and rolled down across his fucking nose and mouth and just crushed his face. And it was, I don't know how close to being a fucking fatal deal, but it was not good. And he had a ton of reconstructive surgery, and he started wearing the mask because his face, he didn't look the same. And if you go back and look at old pictures, young Bob Armstrong looked like Brad. Long hawk nose, kind of sharp, angular features. And older Bob Armstrong, big, wide nose, flatter features. That is what came from that. But the people, they knew it had happened to him, and then they worked the mask in when he was able to come back into the wrestling, storyline by, loser leave town shit. Well, the Bullet will come back, or just the Bullet Bob Armstrong. And then after a while, they became synonymous. So sometimes he wouldn't wear the mask if he was having a good hair day, if he was billed as Bob Armstrong, or if he was billed as Bob Armstrong, but he wasn't having a good hair day, he'd come out as the Bullet. People liked it anyway. And I usually, obviously, had him be Bob Armstrong because he was the commissioner, and that's, the whole thing. But every once in a while, he'd come out and he'd put the mask on just for the fuck of it if he was having a bad hair day. And he was he was so good to work with for me because we had such a personal issue. I could do the 4 or 5 things that I knew how to do. He didn't mind selling for me as long as I healed and cheated, because he knew that that way he'd have a big comeback and people go crazy. And he took care of me and didn't ask me to do things beyond my capabilities. But that, That's just being able to adapt to your surroundings. He was such an old pro, he could do whatever. But the whole mask thing came from that barbell thing. And again, he was still for another 35 years, still bench pressing after it almost killed him. But, that's what I was like, fuck. Bullet was he was like a Southern Luthez. You didn't expect anything to be able to keep him down or hurt him for that long.
And he was the perfect guy as the commissioner at Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He's one of the best on-air authority figures in the history of professional wrestling. Bill Watts was never the authority figure, but you kind of got the feeling he was that guy. And I think a lot of people think, Jim Cornette planned that Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He probably had Bill Watts in mind for that kind of role. It wouldn't have worked as well.
No,
Bob
it would.
Armstrong
Besides the fact that it would have bankrupted me because Watts wouldn't want to do that, but also no, it wouldn't have worked. The people, you have to have not only a guy that has history. Watts had history in Oklahoma and that area. Bob had history in this area, but also you have to have a guy that can talk to the people and the wrestling fans and the way they've been educated to being talked to. They could understand in Mid-South, in that area, they understand and got who Bill Watts was, and he was somewhat abrasive and cocky. That would not have worked in Tennessee. They needed the good old Bullet Bob, and he's humble, and he's a Southern boy, and he's just like one of us, but don't piss him off, because he'll tell you what frickin' fur, that type. It was different personalities. And, yeah, Bob was perfect. He was perfect for that. And nobody else in wrestling could have done it. Anyway, so like I said, it wasn't unexpected. We'd heard that Bob had been sick, but still, you never expect something like that to happen to a guy like that. Whereas I drew the Lance Russell comparison. Lance was like your grandfather or the old man that lived next door, and you get the picture of this frail, gentle man with the great voice, petting his dog Buddy. And I'm crying right now, because that image, it just makes you tear up. But with Bob, it's kind of more of a salute and some admiration, because he was Superman. But either way, we've lost another one. And we just wanted to talk about it and make mention of it. I don't know. This is your program. Close the rest of it up. I'm done.
On that note, on behalf of me and Earth, Wind, and Fire, the drive-thru has come to a close.
Well, Kalimba boy.
Want to remind you can hear the Jim Cornette Experience when it debuts on Friday, wherever you find your...
Can't wait till Friday.
Wherever you find your favorite podcast. Don't forget, next week's drive-thru also debuting on Tuesday, so set your schedules accordingly. Join the official Jim Cornette Patreon. Jim Cornette's College of Wrestling Knowledge. Classic content goes up each and every Sunday. This past week, one of the most popular series of episodes, 2-part interview with Stone Cold Steve Austin on the Jim Cornette Experience.
I remember that one.
Patreon.com/Cornette. Only $5 a month gets you access to the archives of the drive-thru and the experience going back to the beginning in November 2013. Right now, we are in the spring of 2015. Patreon.com/Cornette. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel approaching 160,000 subscribers on our march to 1 million. Join today, or follow today, or subscribe today, whatever the hell it is, and check out all the fine videos with Travis Heckel's exclusive artwork, becoming so popular that Dexter Loomis is now making it his profile photo. tinyurl.com/official corny YouTube, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette. You can follow Jim on Twitter at the Jim Cornette. You can follow me on Twitter at Great Brian Last. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast at 605pod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcast. The new episode is out now. Check it out today. Don't forget Cornette's Collectibles at jimcornette.com.
If you're a postal clerk that has experience and needs a part-time job, get a hold of me.
I was about to say,
I've got openings.
Unfortunately, there is a postal nightmare at hand, but things should be fixed soon. Cornette's Collectibles at jimcornette.com. The drive-thru is brought to you by the Law Office of Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. Get even with Steven at newlawoffice.com. But until Friday on The Experience and next Tuesday, right back here on the Drive-Thru, for Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. Tally-ho!
I got to go, Brian. I got to take a shit.